Hello! I still need an intro for this Wuthering Heights book. I don't have one. I really gotta get one because it's a weird transition from music to just, oh, it's me. I guess it's not that weird. But how's it going, everyone? How are you guys? You guys ready for 3 chapters, 3 long chapters? We got a lot of reading today. So we're gonna get right into it pretty quick. I think in like 5 minutes we're gonna start reading. Hold on, I still have the music playing on my computer. Now we're good. Agonizing chapters? Really? Uh-oh. Did not enjoy this book when you read it years ago. I'm hoping to get more out of it with this group. I know, gathering dark clouds over a moor. Honestly, that sounds about right. I think that's one of the reasons, again, book clubs are really fun. You might not necessarily like the book more, but I think there's sometimes more enjoyment out of it. Even if everyone hates it together, there's still more joy in like a community uprising against a book. Yeah, speed reading was a success. Love that. Yeah, mutual suffering, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You like the book, don't like the characters. Yeah, for sure. And it's fun to just share in this moment with you guys together. Raining. Right mood. You know, it's funny. I am, because all the Harry Potter audiobooks are coming out. So I am listening to those, the full cast audiobooks. They're so great. And the 4th one came out. And you know where they have the Quidditch World Cup? It's in the moors. They talk about it. They put a stadium in the moors, and I was like, oh, it's right next to Wuthering Heights. So, Harry Potter. I got a piece of hair sticking up. Well, alfalfa right there. Everyone is rough in this book. There's not likable characters, but it's still kind of fun. Yeah, Frodo's gonna appear in Wuthering Heights. He would make everything good. The intro should be Kate Bush. What do you mean? I don't know who that is. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, we have blue skies here too. We are finally getting warmer weather. Like, we had a month, no joke, might be the coldest month, January, I've ever experienced in this area in New York City. Next week it's supposed to be 50. Oh, that makes me so happy. Man. Yeah, if you work in car insurance, this is a car crash. This whole thing, a train wreck. We're about to get a 50-degree day and rain next week, so hopefully all the snow will melt. We just had snow for a month. That's just been chilling, which is awful. Kate Bush sings one of the 80s songs in Stranger Things. Okay, interesting. Kate Bush did a song based on Wuthering Heights. Huh, okay, interesting. Nellie is strange. Has a lot of favoritism. I don't know what I think about Nellie. Also, I gotta throw this out there. Whenever we do live reads too. Most of you guys know because you guys are just part of this, but no spoilers for anything. So when we're reading ahead, because a lot of people. Pride and Prejudice was a little different because most people had read Pride and Prejudice and they were just like tagging along for my journey, and everyone was great with that. But because there's a lot of people here who haven't read Wuthering Heights and they're reading it for the first time with us, just as a reminder, no spoilers in comments, and you can't talk about future things that happen. You can always be like, read and find out, or you can be like, hey, by the way, this is gonna happen, but or no, you can't say that. You can kind of like talk about it with in like veiled language, but no spoilers. The spoiler of it's creepy doesn't seem like a spoiler because everyone knows this is creepy. Yeah, I have a feeling there's some weird stuff is going to happen in these chapters. Didn't understand it, so you can't really spoil. Learning from the group. It's the best thing to do. Yeah, 10. It's going to be 10 degrees Celsius. I'm so excited. I'm so ready for it. It's going to be so warm, so lovely. Yeah, we get 40s and 50s next week, which is just the best. I'm so sick of this cold weather. And it's starting to get warm or lighter out, which is great. I get a chance to play the Kate Bush Wuthering Heights video. Okay. I'll play that after stream. Yeah, revisit Kathy's diary. Maybe we'll let's do that and then we'll start reading. That's chapter 3. Yeah, I think that's actually a good idea. Let's revisit Kathy's diary. Chapter 3. It is a lot of, it's like an extra page or so of reading. Where does it start? Okay, I'm going to read some of this. Maybe not all of it. It was a testament in lean type and smelling dreadfully musty. A flyleaf bore the inscription Catherine Earnshaw in her book. And a date some quarter of a century back. I shut it, yada yada, and an immediate interest kindled within me for the unknown Catherine, and I began forthwith to decipher her faded hieroglyphics. An awful Sunday, commenced the paragraph beneath. I wish my father were back again. Hindley is a detestable substitute. His conduct to Heathcliff is atrocious. H and I are going to rebel. We took our initiatory step this evening. All day had been flooding with rain. We could not go to church, so Joseph must needs get up a congregation in the garret, and while Hindley and his wife basked downstairs before a comfortable fire, doing anything but reading their Bibles, I'll answer for it. Heathcliff, myself, and the unhappy ploughboy were commanded to take our prayer books and mount. We were ranged in a row on a sack of corn, groaning and shivering, and hoping that Joseph would shiver too, so that he might give us a short homily for his own sake. A vain idea. The service lasted precisely 3 hours, and yet my brother had the face to exclaim when he saw us descending, "What, done already?" Can't stand Hindley. On Sunday evenings, we used to be permitted to play, if we did not make such noise. Now a mere titter is sufficient to send us into corners. "You forget you have a master here," says the tyrant. "I'll demolish the first who puts me out of temper. I insist on perfect sobriety and silence." Oh boy. "Was that you, Francis, darling? Pull his hair as you go by." I heard him snap his fingers. Oh, dang. Francis pulled his hair heartily. And then when we seated herself, and then went and seated herself on her husband's knee. And they were like two babies kissing and talking nonsense by the hour. Foolish palaver that we should be ashamed of. We made ourselves as snug as our means allowed in the arch of the dresser. I had fastened our pinafores together and hung them up for a curtain. And then comes Joseph on an errand from the stables. He tears down my handiwork, boxes my ears, and croaks. He says something that I'm not going to read because I can't. Saying this, he compelled us to square our positions that we might receive from the far-off fire, a dull ray to show us the text of the lumbar he thrust upon us. I could not bear the employment. I took my dingy volume by the scroop and hurled it into the dog kennel, vowing I hated a good book. Heathcliff kicked his to the same place. There was a hubbub. Joseph says something to Hindley. Hindley hurried up from his paradise on earth, and seizing one of us by the collar and the other by the arm, hurled both into the back kitchen, where Joseph asseverated how Nick would fetch us as sure as we were living. And so comforted, we sought each other a separate nook to await Advent. I reached this book and a pot of ink from the shelf. Um, pleasant suggestion. I suppose Catherine. How little did I dream that Hindley would ever make me cry so, she wrote. My head aches till I cannot keep it on the pillow. I still can't give over. Poor Heathcliff. Hindley calls him a vagabond and won't let him sit with us nor eat with us anymore. And he says he and I must not play together, and threatens to turn him out of the house if we break his orders. I don't think that told me anything new. I kind of knew everything that was there. I don't think that was like revolutionary. I thought maybe it was going to be interesting that we were going to get there. But I think we all kind of knew their mutual feelings for each other. Chapter 8. All right. Yeah, just the context for the visit to Thrushcross. Yeah, that makes sense. I think we kind of knew that they were. I think we knew that their feelings. They had feelings for one another. I don't think anybody thought that Kathy wasn't necessarily like affectionate for Heathcliff. A lot of misguided people seeing the movie thinking it's a romance. I know. I went and saw Hamnet the other day, and the Wuthering Heights trailer came on. And there were people going, "Oh, I can't wait to see that." And I said, "Good luck. Good luck with that." Yeah, I feel like so that's another thing too. I feel like there's a lot of like hidden stuff underneath all this that there's rules and regulations of the time. Oh, Hamnet was brutal. It was so good. Oh, it was so sad. That last scene, I was in hysterics. Oh, so good. I mean, I think he was adopted. Was he? I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't know some of the rules and the regulations for all this kind of stuff. Like, what's the legality for his adoption? Probably not. There's probably not legality behind it, but I don't know. The film is only loosely based on the book. What? Wuthering Heights or Hamnet? I don't think he was legally adopted either. I think he was an illegitimate son. I feel like that's my understanding of that. Also, this week has been hectic, so I haven't been able to like post the videos or schedule the videos for the next few days. You know, it was like you probably know something about it. It was like historical fiction for why Shakespeare wrote Hamlet. And it was great. So creative, so good. England was common law even at the time, so it can be tough to say. As a foundling, he might have been adopted by the formality of it. Was taken as a ward and not adopted as a child. Interesting. All right, guys, we have a lot of reading today. So we're going to get to reading. This is chapter 7. We got to read almost 40 pages. Almost more than 40 pages. 43 pages. And everyone knows the pace that I read. So we're going to get moving on this reading. Make sure you like the stream. You sped red too far. That's all right. This is chapter 7 of Wuthering Heights. I got like I'm trying to bite this little piece of dead skin off my lip. It's awful. It's annoying. All right, here we go. Sorry, that was TMI. Chapter 7. Get ready. Ooh, June. Okay, good. These chapters are good. I'm a little nervous. This might be a dumpster fire. Sorry, one second. I'm getting texts. On the morning of a fine June day, my first bonny little nursling and the last of the ancient Earnshaw stock was born. We were busy with the hay in the faraway field when the girl that usually brought our breakfasts came running, an hour too soon across the meadow, and up the lane, calling me as she ran. Oh, such a grand bairn, she panted out. The finest lad that ever breathed. The doctor says Mrs. must go. He says she's been in a consumption these many months. I heard him tell Mr. Hindley, and now she has nothing to keep her, and she'll be dead before winter. You must come home directly. Wow, we skipped. Gosh. You're to nurse it, Nellie, to feed it with sugar and milk, and take care of it day and night. I wish I were you, because it will be all yours when there is no missus. But is she very ill? I asked, flinging down my rake and tying my bonnet. I guess she is. Yet she looks bravely, replied the girl, and she talks as if she thought of living to see it grown a man. She's out of her head for joy. It's such a beauty. If I were her, I'm certain I should not die. I should get better at the bare sight of it, in spite of Kenneth. I was fairly mad at him. Dame Archer brought the cherub down to master in the house, and his face just began to light up. And the old croaker steps forward and says he, Earnshaw, it's a blessing your wife has been spared to leave you this son. When she came, I felt convinced we should keep her long. And now I must tell you, the winter will probably finish her. Don't take on and fret about it too much. It can't be helped. And besides, you should have known better than to choose a rush of a lass. Choose such a rush of a lass. So, does she have tuberculosis or like typhoid or like the plague or something? Yeah, she should move to Arizona, 100%. Wait, tuberculosis was... Oh, yeah. So I guess she's dying of TB? I don't know what tuberculosis really does. Consumption is tuberculosis. Okay, interesting. That's sad. So she gives birth and then she's about to die of tuberculosis. Seems like everyone on the moors dies of tuberculosis. It's a lung infection. Oh, it makes you cough till you die. Ugh. Brutal. That's awful. It was ages before you learned tuberculosis and consumption. Good to know for me. You'd get tuberculosis after another illness. Interesting. Okay. Weird. That's sad. So has a child and is about to die of tuberculosis. Not even of like childbirth related things, just tuberculosis. That's awful. And what did the master say? I inquired. I think he swore, but I didn't mind him. I was straining to see the bairn. And she began again to ascribe it rapturously. I, as zealous as herself, hurried eagerly home to admire, on my part, though I was very sad for Hindley's sake. He had room in his heart only for two idols, his wife and himself. He doted on both and adored one. And I couldn't conceive how he would bear the loss. When we got to Wuthering Heights, there he stood at the front door, and as I passed in, I asked, "How is the baby?" "Nearly ready to run about, Nell," he replied, putting on a cheerful smile. "And the mistress?" I ventured to inquire. "The doctor says she's—" "Damn the doctor," he interrupted, reddening. "Frances is quite right. She'll be perfectly well by this time next week. Are you going upstairs? Will you tell her that I'll come if she promised not to talk? I left her because she would not hold her tongue, but she must. Tell her Mr. Kenneth says she must be quiet." I delivered this message to Mrs. Earnshaw. She seemed in flighty spirits and replied merrily, "I hardly spoke a word, Ellen. And there he has gone out twice, crying. Well, say I promise I won't speak. But that does not bind me not to laugh at him. Poor soul, till within a week of her death, that gay heart never failed her. Ah." And her husband persisted doggedly, nay furiously, in affirming her health improved every day. When Kenneth warned him that his medicines were useless at that stage of the malady, and he needn't put himself to further expense by attending her, he retorted, "I know you need not. She's well. She does not want any more attendance from you. She never was in a consumption. It was a fever, and it is gone. Her pulse is as slow as mine now, and her cheek is cool." He told his wife the same story, and she seemed to believe him. But one night, while leaning on his shoulder in the act of saying that she thought she would be able to get up tomorrow, a fit of coughing took her, a very slight one. He raised her in his arms. She put two hands about her neck. Her face changed, and she was dead. Dang. That just comes out of nowhere. Man. Hey, what's up, Trig? We're like one page into the chapter 7. Or no, chapter 8. Sorry, chapter 8. So, not that far in. That just happens all of a sudden. This is crazy. As the girl had anticipated, the child Hareton, so the child's name is Hareton, the child Hareton fell wholly into my hands. This is the kid then. This is the kid in the beginning of the novel? It's gotta be. Fell wholly into my hands. Mr. Earnshaw, provided he saw him healthy and never heard him cry, was contented, as far as regarded him. For himself, he grew desperate. His sorrow was that of a kind that will not lament. He neither wept nor prayed. He cursed and defied, execrated God and man, and gave himself up to reckless dissipation. Dissipation? That's not drinking, right? What is dissipation? Just depression or anger? Yeah, tuberculosis just happens crazy fast. Drinking, gambling. Okay, interesting. It's just throwing your time away. Okay. Man, sad. The servants could not bear his tyrannical and evil conduct long. Ooh, yeah, Joseph's going to have an issue with that. Joseph and I were the only two that would stay. I had not the heart to leave my charge, and beside, I had been his foster sister, and excused his behavior more readily than a stranger would. His foster sister. Wait, this is Nellie who's talking. Sorry, yeah, this is Nellie who's talking, correct? We're on Nellie's perspective? Yeah, okay. For a second, I thought we were talking about Kathy there for a second, and we were back in the diary. I think reading the diary threw me off. So we're in Nellie's perspective now. Okay, that threw me off. Joseph remained to Hector over tenants and laborers, and because it was his vocation to be where he had plenty of wickedness to reprove. The master's bad ways and bad companions formed a pretty example for Catherine and Heathcliff. His treatment of the latter was enough to make a fiend of a saint, and truly it appeared as if the lad were possessed of something diabolical at the period. He delighted to witness Hindley degrading himself past redemption, and became daily more notable for savage sullenness and ferocity. I could not half tell what an infernal house we had. The curate dropped calling, and nobody decent came near us at last, unless Edgar Linton's visits to Miss Cathy might be an exception. At 15, she was quite the queen, or she was the queen of the countryside. She had no peer, and she did not turn out a haughty, headstrong creature. I own I did not like her after her infancy was past, and I vexed her frequently by trying to bring down her arrogance. She never took an aversion to me, though. She had a wondrous constancy to old attachments. Even Heathcliff kept his hold on her affections unalterably, and young Linton, with all his superiority, found it difficult to make an equally deep impression. That is trauma bonding to a T, I feel like. Like, where there's loyalty not based on anything else, but just loyalty for the amount of time that you're with a person. He was my late master. That is his portrait over the fireplace. It used to hang on one side, and his wife on the other, but hers has been removed, or else you might see something of what she was. Can you make that out? Mrs. Dean raised the candle, and I discerned a soft-featured face exceedingly resembling the young lady at the Heights, but more pensive and amiable in expression. It formed a sweet picture. The long light hair curled slightly on the temples. The eyes were large and serious, the figure almost too graceful. I did not marvel how Catherine Earnshaw could forget her first friend for such an individual. I marveled how he, with a mind to correspond with his person, could fancy my idea of Catherine Earnshaw. A very agreeable portrait, I observed to the housekeeper. Is it like? Yes, she answered. But he looked better when he was animated. That is his everyday countenance. He wanted spirit in general. Catherine had kept up her acquaintance with the Lintons since her 5 weeks' residence among them. And as she had no temptation to show her rough side in their company, and had the sense to be ashamed of being rude where she experienced such invariable courtesy, she imposed unwittingly on the old lady and the gentleman by her ingenious cordiality, gained the admiration of Isabella, and the heart and soul of her brother. Acquisition that flattered her from the first, for she was full of ambition, and led her to adopt a double character without exactly intending to deceive anyone. How old is she at this time? This is an interesting idea. Uh, 77. So I'm a little conflicted about this. I don't know what the age you would be able to do this in, but I think that's about the age that most people develop some kind of, not second personality to some extent, but like you act differently around different people. To be honest, that's a sign of intelligence. And it's interesting that Nellie here is like, that's not a sign of intelligence. That's a sign of she puts it so negatively. It led her to adopt a double character without exactly intending to deceive anyone. Like, to me, that's not deception if you act differently around different people. Like, when I was that age, I acted differently around my friends' parents than I did my friends. Wait, she was around 13 when Harrington was born? Okay. I don't think we jumped forward. Maybe we jumped forward a little bit. Yeah, actually, we probably jumped forward like maybe like a year or two. Yeah, that's what I think. Like, Nellie is essentially just saying, Kathy, you can code switch. She explicitly says she was 15. Okay. I missed that. But that seems weird that Nellie's, like, they're, maybe I'm reading that too much with too much baggage, but I feel like Nellie doesn't think that's an admirable quality to adopt a double character without exactly intending to deceive anyone. That's the line that's really strange to me. It's interesting. When you're a kid, I think code switching is maybe more difficult, but code switching is still necessary when you're a kid to some extent, and you learn it pretty quick. But 15 is like, I think really when you kind of get into it. The next paragraph explains it a bit more. Excellent. Well, let's keep reading then. Thank you. In the place where she heard Heathcliff termed a vulgar young ruffian, and worse than a brute, she took care not to act like him. But at home she had a small inclination to practice politeness that would only be laughed at, and restrain an unruly nature when it would bring her neither credit nor praise. Interesting. So I guess there is like a level of like a secret person behind that. That's maybe different from code switching. Where you're like hiding who you truly are. So I guess I understand where Nellie's coming from, maybe a little bit more after that paragraph. In the place where she heard Heathcliff termed a vulgar young ruffian, and worse than a brute, she took care not to act like him. But at home she had a small inclination to practice politeness that would only be laughed at, and restrain an unruly nature when it would bring her neither credit nor praise. She was happy to act civilized or feral, depending on her companion. Yeah, I guess it's not the most honorable thing. So being civilized or feral is what kids do to some extent. But the idea that she's doing this and but again, this is Nellie saying this, so I don't know if I believe this, because Nellie just doesn't seem to like Kathy. Like, Nellie is saying this dishonest, but for Kathy's perspective, it might not really be. Like, Kathy might just be like, I'm acting fun around, Heathcliff, and then I act properly around other people. But it feels like now Nellie is like, she was intentionally deceptive because she was hiding that part of who she was, and she was doing that purposefully. It's weird. Like, Nellie just seems to be heaping a little bit of blame on this, like acting like it's more deceptive, when I don't know. So yeah, she says she didn't do it on purpose, but to Nellie, does Nellie really believe that? Because it does seem like Nellie believes that she's doing this on purpose. Yeah, I think she adopted somewhat of a chameleon personality, but maybe just with two different kinds, a feral self and a non-feral self. Let's keep reading. Mr. Edgar seldom mustered courage to visit Wuthering Heights openly. He had a terror of Earnshaw's reputation and shrunk from encountering him. And yet, he was always received with our best attempt at civility. The master himself avoided offending him, knowing why he came, and if he could not be gracious, kept out of the way. I rather think his appearance there was distasteful to Catherine. She was not artful, never played the coquette, and had evidently an object to her two friends meeting at all. Had an objection to her two friends meeting at all. For when Heathcliff expressed contempt of Linton in his presence, she could not half coincide, as she did in his absence. And when Linton evinced disgust and antipathy to Heathcliff, she dare not treat his sentiments with indifference, as if depreciation of her playmate were of scarcely any consequence to her. That still just seems normal. That's like childhood behavior, like especially when you're a teenager like that. You have two friends and they both hate each other. When you hang out with one friend and that one friend is trashing the other, you just kind of like acquiesce. And then when you're with the other friend and that friend trashes the other friend, you kind of just acquiesce to whatever they say. Like, yes, I think the ideal is that you're supposed to stand up for your friends no matter what. But in reality, a teenager just doesn't do that. Like some do. Like I guess I know some that do. But there's such a level of like acceptance that you want to feel that I don't think that this should be treated like a negative thing. Even if it's typical, is it good? I mean, it's not great. It's not like, the ideal. You want teenagers to act, like adults and stand up for people. But I still don't think that's a bad thing for kids to do. No, I'm just, maybe this is more telling on me. But like, I remember I'm still thinking about it. And this is a funny little story, but I had two friends that did not like each other in high school. And I had one friend that just thought the other one was weird. And I remember I would hang out with this one friend because he was like a buddy of mine, obviously, because he was a friend. And he would like trash my other friend. And I wouldn't say anything. I would just be like, yeah, okay. And not kind of like acquiesce to what he was saying, because I still wanted to be his friend and I still liked him. But I guess it was just insecurities on his part. And I think maybe as a kid, you kind of know sometimes those are insecurities. Maybe, I don't know. She doesn't know Heathcliff's looks and behavior are bad. Sees them more as obvious when Edgar's around. When she's with Heathcliff alone, she doesn't care as much. But I don't think that's hypocrisy. Like, how many of us do that perfectly when we're in high school? I think there's just too much societal pressures that you're supposed to like want being wanted and being acceptance or being accepted. So you kind of just do that however you can. Yeah, it definitely was insecurities on my part for sure. Because, I mean, I want to be accepted. And I was nervous if I stood up to my one friend and said, no, I actually really like this guy, you should shut up, that he wouldn't be my friend anymore. Yeah, and again, that's an important point to notice, that this is Nellie speaking poorly of this. Let's keep reading. It's an interesting little tidbit. Yeah, Riley and Inside Out too. Oh, what a great example. Oh, that's perfect. Everyone go watch Inside Out 2, then we'll have this discussion. That's a great example. Like, you just feel peer pressured in some way to be accepted by other groups because they're like cool. And I think that's what Kathy is kind of experiencing. I do not discredit her for this. I think this is actual, to some extent, intelligence, and she's just in a tough spot. Two people that she probably loves and admires hate each other. What do you do in a situation like that? And it's even tougher too because Heathcliff is almost getting violent. Like Heathcliff is probably one of those people that is stewing on his hatred and vengeance. And Kathy's brother is, getting worse and worse. And Heathcliff is like probably saying things like, I'm so glad this is happening. And she doesn't really know how to respond. Like, how do you, like for Kathy especially, as a woman, how do you respond to someone like that? Like this could potentially be like she knows that there's some kind of like physical altercation that might come from this. Like I feel bad for Kathy in this sense because I don't think Linton would touch her, but Heathcliff is exhibiting the propensity toward physicality that's, I think, a little bit alarming. Yeah, a Lily Snape James situation honestly is a great analogy. Man, good. Love that. Yeah, 15 at the time isn't childhood, but like it still is. Like it might not be like maybe kids back then were more mature at 15, but I don't know. And yeah, it's interesting. For sure, I think I'm with you. I think that in this, it almost is like Nellie is a bit jealous of her. So for sure, and I know like societally there was no such thing as a teenager back then. It was just child into adulthood. But still, a teenager is a teenager through and through, no matter like what generation that you're from. Like teenagers' minds, yes, they've changed in some way. But I think a teenager's mind is still a teenager's mind. And you still have some of the same fears and insecurities and desires and whatever it is. I do think that Nellie has a little bit of jealousy just of not being as important as these characters. I don't know. This is a fascinating little side discussion. Yeah, exactly. Just because society sees them as grown up doesn't necessarily mean they're actually mature. Yeah, Nellie knew her place as a servant, but if you still know your place as a servant, I think you're still probably jealous of some people who you're serving. Maybe to some extent. I don't know. Like you want a better life. Anyway, let's keep reading because we could talk about this for hours. Let's finish out this chapter. I've had many a laugh at her perplexities and untold troubles, which she vainly strove to hide from my mockery. That sounds ill-natured, but she was so proud it became really impossible to pity her distress, till she should be chastened into more humility. She did not bring herself finally to confess and confide in me. There was not a soul else that she might fashion into an adviser. Mr. Hindley had gone from home one afternoon, and Heathcliff presumed to give himself a holiday, on the strength of it. He had reached the age of 16 then, I think, and without having a bad feature or being deficient in intellect, he contrived to convey an impression of inward and outward repulsiveness that his present aspect retains no traces of. In the first place, he had, by that time, lost the benefit of his early education. Continual hard work, begun soon and concluded late, had extinguished any curiosity he once possessed in pursuit of knowledge. And any love for books or learning, his childhood sense of superiority instilled into him by the favors of old Mr. Earnshaw was faded away. He struggled long to keep up an equality with Catherine in her studies, and yielded with poignant though silent regret. But he yielded completely, and there was no prevailing on him to take a step in the way of moving upward, when he found he must necessarily sink beneath his former level. Then personal appearance sympathized with mental deterioration. Interesting. He acquired a slouching gait. That is so fascinating. And an ignoble look. His reserved disposition was exaggerated into an almost idiotic excess of unsociable moroseness. and he took a grim pleasure, apparently, in exciting the aversion rather than the esteem of his few acquaintances. That is so fascinating here. That his physical appearance is becoming like his emotional experience. There's some truck outside just beeping, backing up, going crazy. Catherine and he were constant companions still, at his season of respite from labor. But he had ceased to express his fondness for her in words, and recoiled with angry suspicion from her girlish caress, as if conscious there could be no gratification in lavishing such marks of affection on him. On the before-named occasion, he came into the house to announce his intention of doing nothing, while I was assisting Miss Cathy to arrange her dress. She had not reckoned on his taking into his head to be idle, and imagining she would have the whole place to herself, she managed by some means to inform Mr. Edgar of her brother's absence, and was then preparing to receive him. "Cathy, are you busy this afternoon?" asked Heathcliff. "Are you going anywhere?" "No, it is raining," she answered. "Why have you that silk frock on, then?" he said. "Nobody coming here, I hope?" "Not that I know of," stammered Miss. "But you should be in the field now, Heathcliff. It is an hour past dinner time. I thought you were gone." "Hindley does not free us from his accursed presence," observed the boy. "I'll not work any more today. I'll stay with you." "Oh, but Joseph will tell," she suggested. "You'd better go." "Joseph is loading lime on the farther side of Penninstow Crag. It will take him till dark. He'll never know." Loading lime is Hilda Marsden and Ian Jack explaining that lime was used in the Pennines to counteract the barrenness of the soil. Interesting. Strings of pack horses carried lime to the farms in the West Riding. The moorland tracks they followed were known as the Limers' Gates. Interesting. That's kind of cool. So I guess the soil there just sucks. Which makes sense because it's the moors. Put a pin in the thought. Wait, what thought? His appearance looking weird. His appearance matching his physical, or his physical appearance matching his mental appearance. It's so annoying that they do ads on these things. I would love, like, does anybody know a way where I can eliminate ads from YouTube? YouTube just puts ads on streams. It's just ridiculous. Maybe there is a way that I can, in the back end, just completely eliminate ads from live reads, because that's annoying with all these ads. Anyway, let's keep reading. So saying, he lounged to the fire and sat down. Catherine reflected an instant, with knitted brows. She found it needful to smooth the way for an intrusion. "Isabella and Edgar Linton talked of calling this afternoon," she said, at the conclusion of a minute's silence. "As it rains, I hardly expect them. But they may come, and if they do, you'd run the risk of being scolded for no good." "Order Ellen to say you are engaged, Cathy," he persisted. "Don't turn me out for those pitiful, silly friends of yours. I'm on the point sometimes of complaining that but I'll not." "That they what?" cried Catherine, gazing at him with a troubling countenance. "Oh, Nellie," she added petulantly, jerking her head away from my hands. "You've combed my hair quite out of curl. That's enough. Let me alone." "What are you on the point of complaining about, Heathcliff?" "Nothing. Only look at the almanac on the wall." He pointed to a framed sheet hanging near the window, and continued. "The crosses are for the evenings you have spent with the Lintons, the dots for those spent with me. Do you see, I've marked every day." "Yes, very foolish. As if I took notice, replied Catherine in a peevish tone. And where is the sense of that? To show that I do take notice, said Heathcliff. And should always be sitting with you, she demanded. And should I always be sitting with you, she demanded, growing more irritated. What good do I get? What do you talk about? You might be dumb or a baby for anything you say to amuse me, or for anything you do either. You never told me before that I talk too little or that you dislike my company, Cathy, exclaimed Heathcliff in much agitation. It is no company at all, when people know nothing to say and say nothing, she muttered. Her companion rose up, but he hadn't time to express his feelings further, for a horse's feet were heard on the flags, and having knocked gently, young Linton entered, his face brilliant with delight at the unexpected summons he had received. Doubtless Catherine marked the difference between her friends as one came in and the other went. The contrast resembled what you see in exchanging a bleak, hilly coal country for a beautiful, fertile valley. And his voice and greeting were as opposite as his aspect. He had a sweet, low manner of speaking and pronounced his words as you do. That's less gruff than we talk here, and softer. I'm not come too soon, am I? He said, casting a look at me. I had begun to wipe the plate and tidy some drawers at the far end of the dresser. No, answered Catherine. What are you doing here, Nellie? My work, miss, I replied. Mr. Hindley had given me directions to make a third party in any private visits Linton chose to pay. She stepped behind me and whispered crossly, Take yourself and your dusters off when company are in the house. Servants don't commence scouring and cleaning the room where they are. It's a good opportunity now that Master is away, I answered aloud. He hates me to be fidgeting over these things in his presence. I'm sure Mr. Edgar will excuse me. I hate you to be fidgeting in my presence, exclaimed the young lady imperiously. Not allowing her guest time to speak, she failed to recover her equanimity since the little dispute with Heathcliff. I'm sorry for it, Miss Catherine, was my response, and I proceeded assiduously with my occupation. Now, this to me seems why Nellie really doesn't like Catherine all that much. And everything to me is based on like misunderstandings and like abuses of things. So the reason Heathcliff is the way that he is because he hasn't done anything to stop it, but because he was essentially abused and just lingered on his hatred for Hindley. Everything is Hindley's fault, or everything is Mr. Earnshaw's fault. But now Catherine just had a rough conversation with Heathcliff, and then she takes her frustration out on Nellie in this instance. And now Nellie doesn't like her because she just took her hatred or her anger out on Nellie. And so Nellie's probably the one that's going to like let it die because she has to, because she's a servant. But it's no one communicates well in this, or no one's that healthy. No one comes with emotions well. But granted, there's a point in this where there's a point that I kind of think some of us, I think all of us kind of hate and struggle with this book so much, and we find the characters so unlikable because there are aspects about these characters that kind of remind us of ourselves sometimes. Like, who among us hasn't had a bad conversation with someone, and when that person left, we've taken our frustrations from that conversation out on another person? Like, this is one of those books that kind of points back at you a little bit. Maybe not to the level of dysfunction that these characters really have so far, but everything to me is understandable for why they would do certain things. Like, everything leads from one point to another. And Nellie, yeah, she might not let this go. I think she's going to just linger on this, but she can't do that much about it. She can't like talk back to Catherine, I think, because she's like a servant. So, I don't know. Let's keep reading. Where am I? I'm sorry for it, Miss Catherine, was my response, and I proceeded assiduously with my occupation. She, supposing Edgar could not see her, snatched the cloth from my hand and pinched me, with a prolonged wrench, very spitefully on the arm. All right, that's not great. I said I did not love her, and rather relished mortifying her vanity. Now and then. Besides, she hurt me extremely, so I started up from my knees and screamed out. Oh, miss, that's a nasty trick. You have no right to nip me, and I'm not going to bear it. Which is right. I didn't touch you, you lying creature, cried she. Ooh, yikes. Her fingers tingling to repeat the act, and her ears red with rage. She never had power to conceal her passion. It always set her whole complexion in a blaze. What's that, then? I retorted, showing a decided purple witness to refute her. She stamped her foot, wavering a moment, and then irresistibly, impelled by the naughty spirit within her, slapped me on the cheek, a stinging blow that filled both eyes with water. Catherine, love. Catherine, interposed Linton, greatly shocked at the double fault of falsehood and violence which his idol had committed. Leave the room, Ellen, she repeated, trembling all over. Little Hareton, who followed me everywhere, was sitting near me on the floor. At seeing my tears commenced, crying himself, and sobbed out complaints against wicked Aunt Cathy, which drew her fury onto his unlucky head. She seized his shoulders and shook him till the poor child waxed livid. And Edgar thoughtlessly laid hold of her hands to deliver him. In an instant one was wrung free, and the astonished young man felt it applied all over his own ear in a way that could not be mistaken for jest. Whoa! He drew back in consternation. I lifted Hareton in my arms and walked off to the kitchen with him, leaving the door of my communication open, for I was curious to watch how they would settle their disagreement. The insulted visitor moved to the spot where he had laid his hat, pale and with a quivering lip. That's right, I said to myself. Take warning and be gone. It's a kindness to let you have a glimpse of her genuine disposition. Where are you going? Demanded Catherine, advancing to the door. He swerved aside and attempted to pass. You must not go, she exclaimed energetically. I must and shall, he replied in a subdued voice. No, she persisted, grabbing the handle. Not yet, Edgar Linton. You sit down. You shall not leave me in that temper. I should be miserable all night and won't be miserable for you. Can I stay after you have struck me? Asked Linton. Catherine was mute. You've made me afraid and ashamed of you, he continued. I'll not come here again. Her eyes began to glisten and her lids to twinkle. And you told a deliberate untruth, he said. I didn't, she cried, recovering her speech. I did nothing deliberately. Well, go if you please. Get away. And now I'll cry. I'll cry myself sick. She dropped down on her knee by a chair and set to weeping in serious earnest. Edgar persevered in his resolution. As far as the court, there he lingered. I resolved to encourage him. Mrs. Dreadfully Wayward, sir, I called out. As bad as any marred child. You better be riding home or else she will be sick, only to grieve us. The soft thing looked askance through the window. He possessed the power to depart, as much as a cat possessed the power to leave a mouse half killed, or a bird half eaten. I thought, there will be no saving him. He's doomed and flies to his fate. And so it was. He turned abruptly, hastened into the house again, shut the door behind him, and when I went in a while after to inform them that Earnshaw had come home rabid drunk, ready to pull the old place about our ears, his ordinary frame of mind in that condition, I saw the quarrel had merely effected a closer intimacy, had broken the outworks of a youthful timidity, and enabled them to forsake the disguise of friendship and confess themselves lovers. Gosh! This is wild. Oh my gosh. Intelligence of Mr. Hindley's arrival drove Linton speedily to his horse and Catherine to her chamber. I went to hide little Hareton and take the shot out of the master's fowling piece, which he was fond of playing with his insane excitement, to the hazard of the lives of any who provoked or even attracted his notice too much. I had hit upon the plan of removing it, that he might do less mischief, if he did go the length of firing the gun. Wow. Like, as soon as I'm like, okay, I understand what Kathy's doing, she does this. And I'm on Nellie's side now. For sure, this is like the idea, hurt people. But everything is just based on a misunderstanding. And everything is so messed up right now. It's all Hindley's and Mr. Earnshaw's fault. I mean, it's like everyone's fault. But they're kids, so what do you expect? But Heathcliff is nasty to Catherine because Catherine doesn't fully give him her affection. So he kind of takes it out on her in these snide little mean ways. And it was funny because I was talking about how I was nervous for Catherine being under Heathcliff's guise because he's a stern guy. He's a little insane. And he potentially could go to physical abuse or physicality at least. And now Kathy is the one that does that, which is crazy. That came out of nowhere to me. I did not expect that. Man. So she's mad at Heathcliff, takes her anger out on Nellie, and then Edgar tries to stop. She slaps him, lies that she wasn't that physical. She's telling untruths. And then they confess their feelings for one another after this whole toxic mess. That's not a great time to confess your feelings for someone. after someone slapped me. If I go back and I try to like comfort this person and all of a sudden they're like, I love you, I'm going, I don't know about that. That is so true. Totally forgot that she asked for a horsewhip the first time that we met her. Was that because she was into horses though? Like, that could be kind of explained. Maybe she really liked riding horses. Yeah, I'm kind of with you too. Any one of them could have chosen to forgive despite being hurt. I have a video that's like, would that really solve problems? And it wouldn't, but it would solve the problem individually for that person. Yeah, I'm out here yelling at Edgar, don't get involved in this. I don't like Edgar because he's like a kind of a moron. But my guy doesn't deserve that. Just naively in love. So sad. And Sarah, I'm kind of with you too. Like, this is a moment where emotions are running high, so you just then confess your emotions. Maybe not the best thing to do. But everyone's in an emotionally vulnerable state. So you just go off. Confess them all. All right, we still got a lot of reading, so we're going to get into the next chapter. Man, hold on, let me just write a note. Dang. All right. Chapter 9. Man, are we just going to keep devolving here and going down this further and further and further? Because yikes. Also, everyone like the stream. You know the drill. Chapter 9. He entered vociferating oaths dreadful to hear, and caught me in the act of stowing his son away in the kitchen cupboard. Hareton was impressed with a wholesome terror of encountering either his wild beast's fondness or his madman's rage, for in one he ran a chance of being squeezed and kissed to death, and in the other being flung to the fire or dashed against the wall. The poor thing remained perfectly quiet wherever I chose to put him. Man. There, I found it at last, cried Hindley, pulling me back by the skin of the neck, like a dog. By heaven and hell, you've sworn between you to murder that child. I know it is. I know how it is now, that he is always out of my way. But with the help of Satan, I shall make you swallow the carving knife, Nellie. You needn't laugh, for I've just crammed Kenneth head downmost into the Black Horse Marsh, and 2 is the same as 1. And I want to kill some of you. I shall have no rest till I do. Excuse me? So he just kills the doc, Kenneth? Gosh. Brutal. Yeah, Hareton has just grown up like this? So he just pushed him into a bog? That feels like a mob move to kill someone. Didn't kill him. Okay, just sent him away. But it says, I've just crammed Kenneth head downmost into the Black Horse Marsh. Head down into a marsh? Seems like you're about to kill someone. What am I misreading here? Let me just keep reading. Maybe we'll find out more. But I don't like the carving knife, Mr. Hindley, I answered. It has been cutting red herrings. I'd rather be shot, if you please. Oh, gosh. You'd rather be damned, he said. And so you shall. No law in England can hinder a man from keeping his house decent. And mine's abominable. Open your mouth. He held the knife in his hand and pushed its point between my teeth, but for my part I was never much afraid of his vagaries. I spat out, and affirmed it tasted detestably. I would not take it on any account. Oh, he said, releasing me. I see that hideous little villain is not Hareton. I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon, Nell. If it be, he deserves flaying alive for not running to welcome me, and for screaming as if I were a goblin. Unnatural cub, come hither. I'll teach thee to impose on a good-hearted, deluded father. Now, don't you think the lad would be handsomer cropped? It makes a dog fiercer. And I love something fierce. Get me a scissors, something fierce and trim. Besides, it's infernal affectation. Devilish conceit it is to cherish our ears. We're asses enough without them. Hush, child, hush. Well then, it is my darling. Wish to dry thy eyes. There's a joy. Kiss me. What? It won't? Kiss me, Hareton. Damn thee, kiss me. By God, as if I would rear such a monster. As sure as I'm living, I'll break the brat's neck. Okay, I'm glad that you thought Kenneth is dead too, because that seems like Kenneth is dead. Maybe it's a different Kenneth that shows up later. Maybe there's a different Kenneth that he killed. Yeah, poor Hareton. Gosh. These people are awful. So he just comes back in a drunken stupor. But, I mean, this kind of reveals who he is. Poor Hareton was squalling and kicking his father's arms with all his might, and redoubled his yells when he carried him upstairs and lifted him over the banister. I cried out that he would frighten the child into fits and ran to rescue him. Ay, this is awful. As I reached them, Hindley leaned forward on the rails to listen to a noise below, almost forgetting what he had in his hands. "Who's that?" he asked, hearing someone approaching the stairs foot. I leaned forward also, for the purpose of signing to Heathcliff, whose step I recognized not to come further. And at the instant when my eye quitted Hareton, he gave a sudden spring, delivered himself for the careless grasp that held him, and fell. There was scarcely time to experience a thrill of horror before we saw that the little wretch was safe. Heathcliff arrived underneath just at the critical moment by a natural impulse. He arrested his descent and, setting him on his feet, looked up to discover the author of the accident. Oh! A miser who has parted with a lucky lottery ticket for 5 shillings and finds next day that he has lost the bargain £5,000, could not show a blanker countenance than he did on beholding the figure of Mr. Earnshaw above. It expressed, plainer than words could do, the anguish at having made himself the instrument of thwarting his own revenge. Yeah, for sure. This is this is so interesting to me. I feel like this is the moment that he's going to kill. Again, I just feel like Heathcliff is going to kill Hindley. And I feel like this is going to be the moment. And if this is the case, which we'll keep reading, it's a really interesting time that he picked to kill him here. It says actually a lot, but I don't know if that's going to actually happen. So let's keep reading. It expressed plainer than words could do the interest anguish at having made himself the instrument of thwarting his own revenge. Had it been dark, I dare say, he would have tried to remedy the mistake by smashing Hareton's skull on the steps. But we witnessed his salvation, and I was presently below with my precious charge pressed into my heart. Hindley descended more leisurely, sobered and abashed. "It is your fault, Ellen," he said. "You should have kept him out of sight. You should have taken him from me. Is he injured anywhere?" "Injured?" I cried angrily. "If he is not killed, he'll be an idiot. Oh, I wonder his mother does not rise from her grave to see how you use him. You're worse than a heathen, treating your own flesh and blood in that manner." He attempted to touch his child, who, on finding himself with me, sobbed off his terror directly. At the first finger his father laid on him, however, he shrieked again louder than before and struggled as if he would go into convulsions. How old is Hareton right now? Poor Hareton, this is awful. Hindley is very killable. No, I don't think Heathcliff's mad. Hindley's mad that all this happened. 2 or 3? Yeah, it was your fault that this happened. That's not even gaslighting. That's just like idiocy. He's like a moron. Delusions. He attempted to touch the child. Okay, I just read that. "You shall not meddle with him," I continued. "He hates you. They all hate you. That's the truth. A happy family you have, and a pretty state you're come to." "I shall come to a prettier yet, Nelly," laughed the misguided man, recovering his hardness. "At present, convey yourself and away him, and hark you, Heathcliff, clear you too, quite from my reach and hearing. I would murder you tonight unless, perhaps, I set the house on fire. but that's as my fancy goes. While saying this, he took a pint bottle of brandy from the dresser and poured some into a tumbler. Nay, don't, I entreated Mr. Hindley. Or Mr. Hindley, do take warning. Have mercy on this unfortunate boy if you care nothing for yourself. Anyone will do better for him than I shall, he answered. Have mercy on your own son, I said, endeavoring to snatch the glass from his hand. Not I, on the contrary. I shall have great pleasure in sending it into perdition to punish its maker, exclaimed the blasphemer. Here's to its hearty damnation. Ay, ay, ay. Michael, thanks for the $5. He is great. I love we need a little Barliman Butterbur in this section. He'll stop this crap. Man, he drank the spirits and impatiently bade us go, terminating his command with a sequel of horrid imprecations, too bad to repeat or remember. It's a pity he cannot kill himself with drink, observed Heathcliff, muttering an echo of curses back when the door was shut. He's doing his very utmost, but his constitution defies him. Mr. Kenneth says he would wager his mare that he'll outlive any man on the site of Glimmerton, and go to the grave a hoary sinner, unless some happy chance out of the common course befall him. I went into the kitchen and sat down to lull my little lamb to sleep. Heathcliff, as I thought, walked to the barn. It turned out afterward that he only got as far as the other side, the settle, when he flung himself on a bench by the wall, removed from the fire, and remained silent. I was rocking Hareton on my knee and humming a song that began, "It was far in the night, and the berries grat, the mither beneath the holes heard that." The opening lines of the ballad, "The Gaste Warning, Grat wept, mools, earth and soil." When Miss Cathy, who had listened to the hubbub from her room, put her head in and whispered, "Are you alone, Nellie?" "Yes, miss," I replied. She entered and approached the hearth. I, supposing she was going to say something, looked up. The expression of her face seemed disturbed and anxious. Her lips were half asunder, as if she meant to speak, and she drew a breath, but it escaped in a sigh, instead of a sentence. I resumed my song, not having forgotten her recent behavior. "Where's Heathcliff?" she said, interrupting me. "About his work in the stable," was my answer. He did not contradict me, perhaps. Or perhaps he had fallen into a doze. There followed another long pause, during which I perceived a drop or two trickle from Catherine's cheek to the flags. Is she sorry for her shameful conduct, I asked myself. That will be a novelty, but she may come to the point as she will. I shan't help her. No, she felt small trouble regarding any subject save her own concerns. "Oh dear," she cried at last, "I'm very unhappy." "A pity," I observed. "You're hard to please, so many friends and so few cares, and can't make yourself content. Nellie, will you keep a secret from me?" she pursued, kneeling down by me and lifting her winsome eyes to my face with that sort of look which turns off bad temper, even when one has all the rights in the world to indulge it. "Is it worth keeping?" I inquired less sulkily. "Yes, and it worries me, and I must let it out. I want to know what I should do. Today Edgar Linton has asked me to marry him, and I've given him an answer. Now, before I tell you whether it was a consent or denial, you tell me which it outright to have been." "Really, Miss Catherine? How can I know?" I replied. "To be sure, considering the exhibition you performed in his presence this afternoon, I might say it would be wise to refute him, since he asked you after. He must either be hopelessly stupid or a venturesome fool." I like Nellie. Is Nellie our favorite character so far? I feel like she's the only one with sense. That's absurd that Edgar proposes after that happened. If any guy proposes after you've slapped the guy, there's something not right about that situation. That's it. Not like people aren't healthy. feel like that goes without saying. If someone tries to slap, or if you get, not someone tries to, if you get slapped by the girl that you like, and then the next hour you propose, I don't know if that's the best thing to do. I feel like that's, yeah, no self-respect for sure. Honestly, great point. He probably does have some kind of hero complex. He wants to save her in some way. And maybe he does. He probably does see. I mean, like, you can't walk into this house and not see the dysfunction. So maybe he's like, I want to save her from this and thinks he can. But yeah, red flags are going up all over the place. Yeah, after she was slapping someone else too. And she was, and hold on, did I misread or misinterpret that? Wasn't she shaking Harriton? Yeah, I can fix her. Famous last words. This is crazy. I'm really curious if she's going to have said yes or no. I feel like she's going to say no, and then he's going to come back and keep proposing to her. So yeah, she was shaking Harriton. Like that to me is the biggest no-no. Shaking a child. Like that's like the biggest thing that they tell you. Your child's going to, scream and cry. Don't shake your child. Yeah, I want to hear that proposal too. Honestly, probably worse than Colin's and Darcy's proposal. Yeah, honestly, I would have loved to see that proposal. Actually, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about wanting to see that proposal or not. Nellie is definitely the one with the least issues right now. I mean, not like my favorite because she just is like, I mean, I guess she's kind of my favorite. I guess she's maybe a likable character to some degree. Yeah, I can't talk in likable characters or not. These people are nuts. All right, let's keep reading because I want to know what happens. If you talk so, I won't tell you anymore, she returned, peevishly, rising to her feet. Like, that's so stupid. She's a child still for that response. I accept him, Nellie. Be quick and say whether I was wrong. Or I accepted him. Okay, interesting. You accepted him. Then what good is it discussing the matter? You have pledged your word and cannot retract. But say whether I should have done so. Do, she exclaimed in an irritated tone, chafing her hands together and frowning. There are many things to be considered before that question can be answered properly, I said sententiously. First and foremost, do you love him? Do you love Mr. Edgar? Who can help it? Of course I do, she answered. Then I put her through the following catechism. For a girl of 22, it was not injudicious. Why do you love him, Miss Kathy? Nonsense, I do. That's sufficient. By no means. You must say why. Well, because he is handsome and pleasant to be with. Bad was my commentary. Yes, Nellie. And because he is young and cheerful. Bad still. And because he loves me. Indifferent coming there. And he will be rich, and I shall like to be the greatest woman of the neighborhood, and I shall be proud of having such a husband. Worst of all. And now say how you love him. As everybody loves. You're silly, Nellie. Not at all. Answer. This is the best scene in the book so far. And this is I want a mirror scene with the fact of if she loves Heathcliff or not. Because this scene is so telling to me because it almost makes her incapable of knowing what love is. Like, she doesn't seem to even be able to understand this question. She's like, why are you asking me this? I love him because he's rich. I love him because he's handsome and pleasant to be with. There's no real answer for this. And she keeps like questioning Nellie and saying like, why? This is like, I've already answered you. Is she capable of love? I don't know. Everybody loves. You're silly, Nellie. No, not at all. Answer. I love the ground under his feet and the air over his head and everything he touches and every word he says. I love his looks and all his actions and him entirely and altogether. There now. And why? Nay, you're making a jest of it. It is exceedingly ill-natured. It is no jest to me, said the young lady, scowling and turning her face to the fire. I'm very far from jesting, Miss Catherine, I replied. You love Mr. Edgar because he is handsome and young and cheerful and rich and loves you. The last, however, goes for nothing. You would love him without that, probably. And with it, you wouldn't, unless he possessed the 4 former attractions. Not to be sure not. I should only pity him, hate him perhaps if he were ugly and a clown. But there are several other handsome, rich young men in the world, handsomer possibly, and richer than he is. What should hinder you from loving them? If there be any, they are out of my way. I've not seen none like Edgar. You may see some, and he won't always be rich and handsome. Or he won't always be handsome and young, and may not always be rich. He is now, and I have only to do with the present. I wish you would speak rationally. This is crazy that she said that. She's saying this is so wild because she's like, I wish you would speak rationally. All of us reading are going, this is the first rational thing that's happened in this book. This is the first person who is doing something smart and wise. And we're going, thank you, Nellie, for these questions. These are brilliant questions. And all of a sudden you have Kathy going, these are irrational questions. This is like, you know that scene in Anchorman, where Michael Scott's character, what's his real life name, just starts looking around the room and he goes, I love lamp. I love paper. This is Kathy right now, where she's just looking around and just trying to think of things that she loves, but she doesn't actually know what love is or doesn't love him. Gosh. Okay, let's keep reading. Well, that settles it. If you have only to do with the present, marry Mr. Linton. I want your permission for that. I shall marry him, and yet you have told me not whether I'm right. Perfectly right. If people be right to marry only for the present, and now let us hear what you are unhappy about. Your brother will be pleased. The old lady and gentleman will not object, I think. You will escape from a disorderly, comfortless home into a wealthy, respectable one. And you love Edgar, and Edgar loves you. All seems smooth and easy. Where is the obstacle? Here and here, replied Catherine, striking one hand on her forehead and the other on her breast. In whichever place the soul lives, in my soul and in my heart, I'm convinced I'm wrong. That's very strange. I cannot make it out. It's my secret. But if he will not mock me, I'll explain it. I can't do it distinctly, but I'll give you a feeling of how I feel. She seated herself by me again. Her countenance grew sadder and graver, and her clasped hands trembled. Nellie, do you never dream queer dreams? She said suddenly, after some minutes' reflection. Yes, now and then, I answered. And so do I. I have dreamt in my life that I have dreamt in my life dreams that have stayed with me ever after and changed my ideas. They've gone through and through me, like wine through water, and altered the color of my mind. And this one I'm going to tell it, but take care not to smile at any part of it. She's a witch! Oh, don't, Miss Catherine, I cried. We're dismal enough without conjuring up ghosts and visions to perplex us. Come, be merry and like yourself. Look at Hareton. He's dreaming nothing dreary. How sweetly he smiles in his sleep. Yes, and how sweetly his father curses in his solitude. You remember him, I dare say, when he was just another as that chubby thing. Nearly as young and innocent. However, Nellie, I shall oblige you to listen. It is not long. I have no power to be merry tonight. I won't hear it, I repeated hastily. I was superstitious about dreams then, and am still. And Catherine had an unusual gloom in her aspect that made me dread something from which I might shape a prophecy and foresee a fearful catastrophe. Yeah, I'd be the same. She was vexed, but she did not proceed. Apparently taking up another subject, she recommenced in a short time. If I were in heaven, Nellie, I should be extremely miserable. Because you are not fit to go there, I answered. All sinners would be miserable in heaven. But it is not for that. I dreamt once that I was there. I tell you, I won't hearken to your dreams, Miss Catherine. I'll go to bed, I interrupted again. She laughed and held me down. I made a motion to leave my chair. This is nothing, cried she. I was only going to say that heaven did not seem to be my home. And I broke my heart with weeping, and I broke my heart with weeping to come back to earth. And the angels were so angry that they flung me out into the middle of the heath on top of Wuthering Heights, where I woke sobbing for joy. That will do to explain my secret as well as the other. I've no more business to marry Edgar Linton than I have to be in heaven. And if the wicked man in there had not brought Heathcliff so low, I shouldn't have thought of it. It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff now. So he has never known how I love him. And that not because he is handsome, Nellie, but because he's more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. And Linton's is as different as a moonbeam from lightning, or a frost from fire. Ere this speech ended, I became sensible of Heathcliff's presence. Having noticed a slight movement, I turned my head and saw him rise from the bench and steal out noiselessly. He had listened till he heard Catherine say it would degrade her to marry him, and then he stayed to hear no farther. Oh, bummer. I think you'd be saved. I think we'd probably be saved a lot from this novel if you stayed for the whole conversation. My companion, sitting on the ground, was prevented by the back of the settle from remarking his presence or departure, but I started and bade her hush. Why? She asked, gazing nervously around. Joseph is here, I answered, catching opportunely the roll of his cart wheels up the road. And Heathcliff will come in a moment. With him. I'm not sure whether he were not at the door this moment. Oh, he couldn't overhear me at the door, she said. Give me Hareton while you get the supper. And when it is ready, ask me to sup with you. I want to cheat my uncomfortable conscience and be convinced that Heathcliff has no notion of these things. He has not, has he? He does not know what being in love is. I see no reason that he should not know, as well as you, I returned. And if you are his choice, he'll be the most unfortunate creature that was ever born. As soon as you become Mrs. Linton, he loses friend and love and all. Have you considered how you'll bear the separation, and how we'll bear to be quite deserted in the world? Because, Miss Catherine, hold on. Just got to take a quick note. Man. It makes me wonder, in the beginning of the novel, like there's that idea of if that's actually Catherine or not. The supernatural element in this book is so strange to me. Was that actually Catherine being cast down from heaven and haunting this place? Because it sure feels like that right now. Man alive. Ay, ay, ay. These people. All right, let's keep going. This chapter is brutal. He quite deserted. We separated, she exclaimed, with an accent of indignation. Who is to separate us, pray? They'll meet the fate of Milo. Milo, a Greek athlete who attempted to tear an oak tree into two but found himself trapped when the cleft closed over his hands. Interesting. Not as long as I live, Ellen. For no mortal creature. Every Linton on the face of the earth might melt into nothing before I could consent to forsake Heathcliff. Oh, that's not what I intended. Not what I meant. I shouldn't be Mrs. Linton were such a price. I shouldn't be Mrs. Linton were such a price demanded. He'll be as much to me as he has been all his lifetime. Edgar must shake off his antipathy and tolerate him at least. He will when he learns my true feelings toward him. Nellie, I see now. You think me a selfish wretch, but did it never strike you that if Heathcliff and I married, we should be beggars? Whereas if I married Linton, I can aid Heathcliff to rise and place him out of my brother's power. Whoa! Imagine being Edgar in this situation. Yikes. With your husband's money, Miss Catherine, I asked, you'll find him not so pliable as you calculate upon. And though I'm hardly a judge, I think that the worst motive you've given yet for being... I think that's the worst motive you've given yet for being the wife of young Linton. Yes, thank you. It is not, retorted she. It is the best. The others were the satisfaction of my whims, for Edgar's sake, too, to satisfy him. This is for the sake of one who comprehends in person my feelings to Edgar and myself. I cannot express it, but surely you and everybody have a notion that there is, or should be, an existence of yours beyond you. What were the use of my creations if I were entirely contained there? My great miseries in the world have been Heathcliff's miseries, and I watched and felt each from the beginning. My great thought in living is himself. If all else perished and he remained, I should still continue to be. And if all else remained and he were annihilated, the universe would turn into a mighty stranger. Mighty stranger, Kathy's declaration needs to be echo lines from Emily's poem, No Coward Soul Is Mine. Though earth and moon were gone, and suns and universe ceased to be, and thou wert left alone, every existence would exist in thee. Wow, that's a great poem. A little line from a poem. I should not seem a part of it. My love for Linton is like the foliage in the woods. Time will change it. I'm well aware as winter changes the trees. My love for Heathcliff resembles the eternal rocks beneath, a source of low visible delight, but necessary. Nellie, I am Heathcliff. He's always, always in my mind. Not as a pleasure, any more than I am always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being. So don't talk of our separation again. It is impracticable. And she paused and hid her face in the folds of my gown. But I jerked it forcibly away. I was out of patience with her folly. Now, okay, I want to say this. I think a lot of you guys will probably agree with me on this, because I think this is one of the purposes of the novel. This is an unbelievably romantic in a terrible way. Some of these are the lines that I wanted in Pride and Prejudice, because the writing is just so good. Kathy was so confused, but now she is speaking awfully because her reasoning is terrible. Her logic is so flawed and so terrible and so awful. But she's speaking from her heart, and she's speaking her love not love. Again, this isn't really love. She's speaking her feelings in a very romantic way. In like a fake romantic way. Yeah, this isn't really romance, to be completely honest. But the actual words of this they're great. There's some banger lines in the paragraphs here. Like, there's some really great lines. Like, this one is phenomenal. Nellie, I am Heathcliff. He's always in my mind, not as a pleasure any more than I am always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being. Like imagine if that was said in a healthy relationship. Imagine if Elizabeth said that of Darcy to Jane. Jane would be like, dude, write this down because that's a banger line. This would make a great poem. But it reminds me, have any of you seen Captain Fantastic? Great movie. Love the movie. But there's a scene in that. I haven't read Lolita, but it's like that's the same idea. There's a character who talks about that novel and says, the book is so romantic. She's like, it's just so lovely. She's like, the words, like his affection for this woman is just so beautiful. But it's supposed to lead you astray because it's pedophilia. And so like you don't like a character, but like the words that they say, you're like, oh my gosh, this person. Oh, it's like it tears your heart. So beautifully written, so dysfunctional and so evil. Man, this feels like that. He tried to read Lolita as a teen and threw the book. Interesting. I don't know if I want to read Lolita, but maybe we'll get there eventually. All right, let's keep reading because this is just wild all over the place. If I can make any sense of your nonsense, miss, I said, it only goes to convince me that you are ignorant of the duties you undertake in marrying, or else that you are a wicked, unprincipled girl. But trouble me no more with secrets. I'll not promise to keep them. You'll keep that? She asked eagerly. No, I'll not promise that, I repeated. She was about to insist when the entrance of Joseph finished our conversation, and Catherine moved her seat to a corner and nursed Hareton while I made the supper. After it was cooked, my fellow servant and I began to quarrel who should carry some to Mr. Hindley, and we didn't settle it till all was nearly cold. Then we came to the agreement that we would let him ask, if he wanted any, for we feared particularly to go into his presence when he had been some time alone. And isn't that not come in fra the field be this time? What is he about? Gert Edel seat? Great idle sight. Okay. Demanded the old man, looking around for Heathcliff. I'll call him, I replied. He's in the barn, I've no doubt. I went and called, but got no answer. On returning, I whispered to Catherine that he had heard a good part of what she said. I was sure. And I told how I saw him quit the kitchen just as she complained of her brother's conduct regarding him. She jumped up in a fine fright, flung Hareton onto the settle, and ran to seek for her friend herself, not taking leisure to consider why she was so flurried, or how her talk would have affected him. She was absent such a while that Joseph proposed we should wait no longer. He cunningly conjectured that they were staying away in order to avoid hearing his protracted blessings. They were ill enough for only foul manners, he affirmed. And on their behalf, he added, that night a special prayer to the usual quarter of an hour supplication before meat, and would have tacked another to the end of the grace, had not his young mistress broke in upon him with a hurried command that he must run down the road, and wherever Heathcliff had rambled, find and make him re-enter directly. I want to speak to him, and I must before I go upstairs, she said. And the gate is open. He is somewhere out of hearing, for he would not reply, though I shouted at the top of the folds as loud as I could. Joseph objected at first. She was too much in earnest, however, to suffer contradictions, and at last he placed his hat on his head and walked grumbling forth. Meantime, Catherine paced up and down the floor, exclaiming, I wonder where he is. I wonder where he can be. What did I say, Nellie? I've forgotten. Was he vexed at my bad humor till this afternoon? Dear, tell me what I've said to grieve him. I do wish he'd come. I do wish he would. What a noise for nothing, I cried, though rather uneasy myself. What a trifle scares you? It's surely no great cause of alarm that Heathcliff should take the moonlight saunter on the moors, or even lie too sulkily to speak to us. In the hayloft, I'll engage he's lurking there. See if I don't ferret him out. I departed to renew my search. Its result was disappointment, and Joseph's quest ended the same. Yon lad gets war and war. Gosh, Joseph gets worse and worse, observed he on re-entering. He's left the yate at the full swing, and Mrs. Pony has trod down 2 rigs, and oh my gosh, 2 rigs are ridges, plottered is blundered, offled is worthless. Through the rate o'er in the meadow, handsomer the maester'll play to divil to morn, and he'll do well. He's patience is'll we sich careless a falled craters. All right, I need the companion. Oh, thank you, Nemo. Thank you. I was literally just going to look that up. Chapter 9. He says, that lad gets worse and worse, observed he on re-entering. He's left the gate fully open, and Mrs. Pony has trodden down 2 fields of corn and blundered through, right over the meadow. However, the master will complain badly in the morning, and he'll do well. He is patient itself with careless, worthless creatures. Patient itself he is, but he'll not always be... but it'll not be always so. You'll say, all of you, you mustn't set him up for nothing. Have you found Heathcliff, you ass? Interrupted Catherine. Oh, hold on. That's the line we get. Wait, what is that? Oh, here we go. Have you found Heathcliff, you ass? Interrupted Catherine. How have you been looking for him as I ordered? I would much rather look for the horse, he replied. It would make more sense. But I can look for neither horse nor man on a night like this, as black as the chimney, and Heathcliff's not the kind of boy to come at my whistle. It's likely he would be less hard of hearing with you. Whew. Joseph dialect, just come on. Emily Bronte, you didn't need to do this. It was very dark. It was a very dark evening for summer. The clouds appeared inclined to thunder, and I said we had better all sit down. The approaching rain would be certain to bring him home without further trouble. However, Catherine would not be persuaded into tranquility. She kept wandering to and fro from the gate into the door, in a state of agitation which permitted no response, and at length took up a permanent situation on one side of the wall near the road, where, heedless of my expostulations, the growling thunder and the great drops that began to plash around her, she remained, calling at intervals and then listening, and then crying outright. She beat Hareton or any child at a good passionate fit of crying. She is just not healthy, and it's so funny. Like, early on, I was like, even in her journal, I'm like, she seems okay. And then now she's just going crazy. About midnight, while we still sat up, the storm came rattling over the heights in full fury. There was a violent wind as well as thunder, and either one or the other split a tree off at the corner of the building. What's up, Wes? You all right, bud? I know, we're reading a crazy story, buddy. A huge bough fell across the roof and knocked down a portion of the east chimney stack, sending a clatter of stones and soot into the kitchen fire. We thought a bolt had fallen into the middle of us, and Joseph swung onto his knees, beseeching the Lord to remember the patriarchs Noah and Lot. And as in former times, spare the righteous, though he smote the ungodly. I felt the sentiment that it must be judgment on us also. The Jonah, in my mind, was Mr. Earnshaw, and I shook the handle of his den that might ascertain if he were lying, or if he were yet living. He replied audibly enough, in a fashion which made my companion vociferate more clamorously than before that a wide distinction might be drawn between saints like himself and sinners like his master. But the uproar passed away in the 20 minutes, leaving us all unharmed except Kathy, who got through drenched for her obstinacy in refusing to take shelter and standing bonnetless and shawless to catch as much water as she could with her hair and clothes. She came in and laid down on the settle. All soaked as she was, turning her face to the back and putting her hands before it. "Well, miss," I exclaimed, touching her shoulder, "you are not bent on getting your death, are you? Do you know what o'clock it is? 12:30. Come to bed. There's no use waiting longer on that foolish boy. He'll be gone to Gimmerton, and he'll stay there now. He guesses we shouldn't wake for him till this late hour at least. He guesses that only Mr. Hindley would be up, and he'd rather avoid having the door opened by the master." Nay, he's known at Gimmerton," said Joseph. All right, we're going straight to the source. Joseph is just wordy in this chapter. No, he's not at Gimmerton, said Joseph. I expect he's at the bottom of a bog. Gosh, Joseph. This visitation storm wasn't for nothing, and I would advise you to watch out, miss. You might be the next. Thank heaven for it all. It all works out for the good of those who are chosen by God and picked out from the rubbish. You know what the scripture says. Wow, Joseph's a really great guy. Sheesh. Brutal. He began quoting several texts, referring us to the chapter and verse where we might find them. I, having vainly begged the wilful girl to rise and remove her wet things, left him preaching, and her shivering, and betook myself to bed with little Hareton, who slept as fast as if everyone had been sleeping round him. I heard Joseph read on afterward. Then I distinguished his slow step on the ladder, and then I dropped asleep. Coming down somewhat later than usual, I saw, by the sunbeams piercing the chinks of the shutter, Miss Catherine still seated near the fireplace. The house door was ajar, too, and light entered from its unclosed windows. Hindley had come out and stood at the kitchen hearth, haggardly and drowsy. What ails you, Cathy? He was saying when I entered. You look as dismal as a drowned whelp. Why are you so damp and pale, child? I've been wet, she answered reluctantly, and I'm cold, that's all. Oh, she is naughty, I cried, perceiving the master to be tolerably sober. She got steeped in the shower of yesterday evening, and there she has sat the night through, and couldn't prevail on her to sit, and I couldn't prevail on her to stir. Mr. Earnshaw stared at us in surprise. The night through, he repeated. What's kept her up? Not fear of thunder, surely. That was over hours since. Neither of us wished to mention Heathcliff's absence as long as we can conceal it, so I replied I didn't know how she took it into her head to sit up. And she said nothing. The morning was fresh and cool. I threw back the lattice, and presently the room filled with sweet scents from the garden, but Catherine called peevishly to me. Ellen, shut the window, I'm starving. And her teeth chattered as she shrunk closer to the almost extinguished embers. She's ill, said Hindley, taking her by the wrist. I suppose that's the reason she would not go to bed. Damn it. I don't want to be troubled with more sickness here. What took you into the rain? Running after the lads. Okay, this is a long Joseph chunk. Running after the lads as usual, croaked Joseph, catching an opportunity from their hesitation to thrust out his evil tongue. If I were you, master, I'd just slam the door in those faces, all of them. Simple as that. Never a day goes by when you're away, but that the son of Linton comes sneaking here. And Miss Nellie, she's a fine one. She sits there watching for you in the kitchen. And as you come in at one door, he's out after the other. Then our grand lady goes a-courting herself. It's fine behavior lurking in the fields after 12 at night. With that foul, frightening devil of a gypsy, Heathcliff. They think I'm blind, but I'm not. Nothing of the sort. I saw young Linton both coming and going, and I saw you directing his discourse to me. You good-for-nothing, slovenly witch, run up and down in the house the minute you heard the master's horse coming up the road. Come on, Joseph. Why is everyone getting tuberculosis? And they're literally just standing in the rain the entire night. That's why. They're all sick because of that. Man, Joseph is Not great. I really don't like Joseph in this novel. Like he uses his religion as like a cudgel. Like he beats people with his religion. Not great. Michael, thanks for the $5. Wait, the Victorian pronunciation when Bronte wrote it uses a long I for Hindley, not a short I. Hindley? Okay, Hindley. What are you barking at? West see someone out on the street. Yeah, he's a piece of work. Definitely something in the water here. They're drinking more water, and it's not good. That kind of water doesn't do you very good. Kindly, like kindly. Not? Ay. All right, let's keep reading. Hindly. So like hind end. Not kind people. Oh. Silence, eavesdropper, cried Catherine. None of your insolence before me. Edgar Linton came yesterday by chance, Hindley. And it was I who told him to be off, because I knew you would not like to have met him as you were. You lie, Cathy, no doubt, answered her brother. And you are a confounded simpleton. But never mind, Linton, at present. Tell me, were you not with Heathcliff last night? Speak the truth now. You need not be afraid of harming him, though I hate him as much as ever. He did me a good turn a short time since. That will make my conscience tender of breaking his neck. To prevent it, I shall send him about his business this very morning, and after he's gone, I'll advise you all to look sharp. I shall only have more humor for you. More humor for you is, I'm guessing, more abuse for you. Ill temper. Yep, sounds about right. That would be a phenomenal novel idea. Throw Jane Bennett in a situation like that and see what she thinks of these people. That'd be wild. He's a pain in the behindly. Yes. I never saw Heathcliff last night, answered Catherine, beginning to sob bitterly. And if you do turn him out of doors, I'll go with him, but perhaps you'll never have the opportunity. Perhaps he's gone. She burst into an uncontrollable grief, and the remainder of her words were inarticulate. Hindley lavished hindquarters. I'm just going to call him hindquarters. He's a big ass. Yeah, we couldn't do that to Jane. But Jane would probably turn them all good. Hindley lavished on her a torrent of scornful abuse, and bid her to get a room immediately, or she shouldn't cry for nothing. I obliged her to obey, and I shall never forget what a scene she acted when we reached her chamber. It terrified me. I thought she was going mad, and I begged Joseph to run for the doctor. It proved the commencement of delirium. Mr. Kenneth, he's back from the dead, as soon as he saw her, pronounced her dangerously ill. She had a fever. He bled her, and he told me to let her live on whey and water and gruel, and take care she did not throw herself down the stairs or out of the window. And then he left, for he had enough to do in his parish, where 2 or 3 miles was the ordinary distance between cottage and cottage. He can't leave fast enough. So what happened in that one instance with Hindley and Kenneth? Did Hindley just push him? And he fell into a bog and he just got out of it? That really felt like murder. Something fishy was going on there. But now he's like, I'm getting out of here as fast as I can. Jane would die of tuberculosis in the week. Yeah, for sure. Poor Jane. I wouldn't mind if everyone in this novel dies of tuberculosis within the week. Except for Nellie, maybe. And the young Hareton, who's probably going to turn out miserable. Kenneth might have beaten Hindley silly. Oh, I like that theory. And Hindley was just coming and saying, oh, yeah, I messed him up. I like that. New headcanon. Though I cannot say I made a gentle nurse, and Joseph and the master were no better. And though our patient was as wearisome and headstrong as a patient could be, she weathered it through. Old Mrs. Linton paid us several visits, to be sure, and set things to rights, and scolded and ordered us all. And when Catherine was convalescent, she insisted on conveying her to Thrushcross Grange, for which deliverance we were very grateful for, or for which we were very grateful. But the poor dame had reason to repent of her kindness. She and her husband both took the fever and died within a few days of each other. What? Dang. People are just dying in this novel. Farewell to the Lintons. Our young lady returned to us, saucier and more passionate and haughtier than ever. Heathcliff had never been heard of since the evening of the thunderstorm, and one day I had the misfortune, when she had provoked me exceedingly, to lay the blame of his disappearance on her, where indeed it belonged, as she knew well. From that period, for several months, she ceased to hold any communication with me, save in the relation of a mere servant. Joseph fell under a ban also. He would speak his mind and lecture her all the same if she were a little girl. And she esteemed herself a woman, and our mistress, and thought that her recent illness gave her claim to be treated with consideration. Then the doctor had said that she would not bear crossing much. She ought to have her own way. It was nothing less than murder in her eyes for anyone to presume to stand up and contradict her. From Earnshaw and his companions she kept aloof, and tutored by Kenneth, and serious threats of a fit that often attended her rages. Her brother allowed her whatever she pleased to demand, and generally avoid aggravating her fiery temper. He was rather too indulgent in humoring her caprices, not from affection but from pride. He wished earnestly to see her bring honor to the family by an alliance with the Lintons, and as long as she let him alone, she might trample us like slaves for aught he cared. Edgar Linton, as multitudes have been before, and will after him, was infatuated, and believed himself to be the happiest man alive on the day he led her to Gimmerton Chapel, 3 years subsequent to his father's death. Wow, so we are getting some time jumps here. Much against my inclination, I was persuaded to leave Wuthering Heights and accompany her here. Little Hareton was nearly 5 years old, and I had just begun to teach him his letters. We made a sad parting, but Catherine's tears were more powerful than ours. When I refused to go, and when she found out her entreaties did not move me, she went lamenting to her husband and brother. The former offered me munificent wages. The latter ordered me to pack up. He wanted no woman in the house, he said, now that there was no mistress. And as to Hareton, the curate should take him in hand by and by. And so I had but one choice left, to do as I was ordered. I told the master he got rid of all decent people only to run a ruin a little faster. I kissed Hareton goodbye, and since then he has been a stranger, and it is very queer to think about, but I have no doubt he has completely forgotten all about Ellen Dean. And that was ever more than all the world to her. And that he was evermore all the world to her, and she to him. Aw, that's sad. This is moving fast, guys. Kathy sounds like quite the lovely person. Yikes. Edgar is in for a rude awakening. At this point of the housekeeper's story, she chanced to glance toward the timepiece over the chimney, and was in amazement on seeing the minute hand measuring 1:30. She would not hear of staying a second longer. In truth, I felt rather disposed to defer the sequel of her narrative myself. And now that she has vanished to her rest, I have meditated for another hour or two. I shall summon courage to go also, in spite of aching laziness of head and limbs. Man. Gosh. All right, we got one more chapter. You know, it really is so interesting that Emily Bronte decided to write a like a female abuser. Like, I thought this novel was going to be, and it almost led me to believe in the beginning that Heathcliff was really going to be the abuser. But Kathy comes out of nowhere and just starts slapping people. I feel like that's a video title. Kathy comes out of nowhere and just starts slapping people. Ay, ay. To be honest, it does kind of feel like it comes out of nowhere for me. And maybe that's me because I'm a naive or something. You're about to discuss some lunch. She definitely was a little psychopathic. To me, she did not have that much of a physical abusive mentality. Like, that seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. She was neglected for sure, and like, you know, abusers abuse. Or abusees. The abused abuse, I guess. So like, her family history might lead to that to some extent, but maybe that's sexist of me to not think that this happens in women too. Yeah, it's really interesting. What's HPD? Bipolar personality? I feel like she doesn't necessarily have, maybe bipolar is like long courses of months, and maybe she does have that. This feels like borderline. I mean, I can't really diagnose because I don't know, but man, these people are just messed up. Crazy that she's the abuser. Gosh. Histrionic personality disorder. Oh, BPD is borderline personality disorder? I thought bipolar. Oh, yeah, because bipolar isn't a personality disorder, right? Something like that. I don't know. Ay, ay, ay. A female teacher in Memphis was recently arrested for sexual assault of a teen boy. That is tragic. Knack for gaslighting and manipulating. She's a piece of work. Again, I thought this novel was going to be less about, I mean, I knew it was going to be about her, but I thought it was going to be like about the terrible things that happened to her. And it's really about the terrible things that she's causing. It's crazy. All right, chapter 10. We got like 15 pages left. Dang, these people are messed up. Ay, ay, ay. All right, here we go. Chapter 10. A charming introduction to a hermit's life. 4 weeks torture, tossing in sickness. Oh, these bleak winds and bitter northern skies and impassable roads and dilatory country surgeons. Oh, and oh, this dearth of human physiognomy. And worse than all, the terrible intimations of Kenneth that I need not expect to be out of doors till spring. Mr. Heathcliff was just honored me with a call. About 7 days ago, he sent me a brace of grouse. It's kind of nice. The last of the season. Did he poison these? And that I had not a great mind to tell him, but alas, how could I offend a man who was charitable enough to sit at my bedside a good hour and talk on some other subjects than pills and drafts, blisters, and leeches? This is quite an easy interval. I am too weak to read yet I feel as if I could enjoy something interesting. Why not have up Mrs. Dean to finish her tale? I can recollect its chief incidents as far as she had gone. Yes, I remember her hero had run off and never been heard of for 3 years, and the heroine is was married. I'll ring. She'll be delighted to find me capable of talking cheerfully. Mrs. Dean came. It wants 20 minutes, sir, to take the medicine, she commenced. Away with it, I replied. I desire to have. The doctors say you must drop the powders. With all my heart, don't interrupt me. Come and take your seat here. Keep your fingers from that bitter phalanx of vials. Draw your knitting out of your pocket. That will do. Now continue the history of Mr. Heathcliff from where you left off to the present day. Did he finish his education on the continent and come back a gentleman? Or did he get a sizar's palace, which is a scholarship position at Cambridge, such as that held by Emily's father, Patrick, at St. John's College? Oh, that's cool. Or escape to America and earn honors by drawing blood from his foster country, or make a fortune more promptly on the English highways. He may have done a little in all those vocations, Mr. Lockwood, but I couldn't give my word for any. I stated before that I did not know how he gained his money. Neither am I aware that the means he took to raise his mind from the savage ignorance into which it was sunk. But with your leave, I'll proceed in my own fashion, if you will think it will amuse and not weary you. Are you feeling much better this morning? Much. That's good news. Now, this is going to be crazy because I feel like Heathcliff is then he's going to come back rich and he's going to buy this place. He's going to buy the property essentially to torture Kathy. Man. They remind me of some of Shakespeare's more dramatic characters, like Lear and others. Yeah, these people are messed up. Yeah, this is really just revenge. You know what? I'm honestly, oh man, I don't know if we should do this. Okay. Quick side thought. I am half tempted to read The Count of Monte Cristo after this. That would take months. But I'm kind of half tempted to, because when I read that the first time in college, I remember being disappointed because it wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. And this is all about revenge, I feel like. So I'm like, maybe we do a long read and we do The Count of Monte Cristo. And we really get into it with The Count of Monte Cristo. Because if this is about the nasty side of revenge, we could do The Count of Monte Cristo, where I feel like it's more about like the positive side of justice. Like a good little tale like that. I feel like that'd be kind of fun. But let me think about that, because that is going to take us a long time to read. There's no justice. There's just us. That seems like something Kathy would say. There's no justice. There is just us. But we'll see. We're definitely going to do the Count of Monte Cristo soon, but maybe that'll be the long read for the day or for the year. But I really want to do Moby Dick too. I keep hearing so many good things about that. So we'll figure that out. We'll figure it out, guys. Maybe we'll do like a short read in between then, like Where the Red Fern Grows or something. We'll see. We'll see. Ooh, revenge is a strong theme in Moby Dick too. Okay, excellent. Wuthering Heights is a telenovela. Honestly, that's a perfect fit. I've never seen the movie for Moby Dick. I don't know a thing about Moby Dick except that it's just like him chasing a whale, right? Can't listen to me read descriptions of whale anatomy. I don't want to do the abridged versions of any of these books, but maybe we have to do some of the abridged versions of that. Maybe we won't live read those. I need to know what chapters ahead of time are just whale anatomy, and then I can just read those on my own. Yeah, the Painted Veil is on there too. Treasure Island better than Moby Dick. Interesting. All right, we'll figure that out later. I'm gonna keep reading because I want to know what happens. I want to know more about this dysfunction. I got Miss Catherine and myself to Thrushcross Grange, and to my agreeable disappointment, she behaved infinitely better than I dared to expect. She seemed almost fond of Mr. Linton, and even to his sisters she showed plenty of affection. They were both very attentive to her comfort, certainly. It was not the thorn bending to the honeysuckles, but the honeysuckles embracing the thorn. That's a great line. There were no mutual concessions. One stood erect and the others yielded. And who can be ill-natured and bad-tempered when they encounter neither opposition nor indifference? Now, this is a fascinating idea because I was talking about this with Lord of the Rings, and there's a 30-minute essay coming about this tomorrow on the Lord of the Rings channel. But the idea of rehabilitation. Being dangerous, and the idea of like having mercy be super dangerous. Like, is Kathy really going to change? I feel like all of us are going to say no. If you've read this novel, you probably know. Maybe she doesn't. I think all of us who are in this novel right now at chapter 10, we know that she's not going to change. That the honeysuckles are going to be demolished by this thorn eventually. I also really want to do some Shakespeare on this channel too. Maybe we'll do like a good Shakespeare right after this. There's so many books to read, guys. Oh yes, Nemo, link your channel, please. Because I love that you're going to do that. Everyone, go follow Nemo and Myth Mavens. I'm very happy that you're doing that. I'm not going to watch because I'm going to do that for myself and later on. But please, please, please. I observed that Mr. Edgar had a deep-rooted fear of ruffling her humor. He concealed it from her. But if ever he heard me answer sharply, or saw another servant grow cloudy at some imperious order of hers, he would show his trouble by a frown of displeasure that never darkened his own account. He many a time spoke sternly to me about my pertness, and averred that the stab of a knife could not inflict a worse pang than he suffered at seeing his vexed lady, or his lady vexed, right? A little dyslexia. Not to grieve a kind master, I learnt to be less touchy. Then for the space of half a year, the gunpowder lay as harmless as sand, because no fire came near to explode it. Catherine had seasons of gloom and silence now and then. That's interesting. Kathy had seasons of gloom and silence. A little bipolar. They were respected with sympathizing silence by her husband, who ascribed them to an alteration in her constitution produced by perilous illness, as she was never subject to depression or of spirits before. The return of sunshine was welcomed by answering sunshine from him. I believe I may assert that they were really in possession of deep and growing happiness. Wow. Huh. Shakespeare's better watched than read. Interesting. That's like the unanimous agreement. Yeah, this seems very consistent with bipolar, just months where she's out of it. But she has a bunch of stuff. Like, I can't really diagnose her because I don't know what the heck I'm talking about with that stuff. But I know some of it in people that I know. And that seems very similar. Yeah, for sure. This seems unreliable. I believe I may assert that they were really in possession of deep and growing happiness. I'm not too sure about that. It ended. There you go. Well, we must be ourselves in the long run. That's a great line. She believes that people don't change. I feel like this novel is literally like the antithesis to any novels that talk about how people can actually change. Like this is the antithesis to Pride and Prejudice. Although people don't necessarily change in Pride and Prejudice, just their opinions change, which I guess is maybe them changing to some extent. We must be for ourselves. We must be for ourselves in the long run. Oh, I actually misread that line. We must be for ourselves in the long run. We must be ourselves for the long run. Okay, we must be for ourselves in the long run, which is still a great line. The mild and generous are only more justly selfish than the domineering, and it ended when circumstances caused each to feel that one's interest was not the chief consideration in the other's thought. Which is that's a great paragraph, to be completely honest. On a mellow evening in September, I was coming from the garden with a heavy basket of apples which I had been gathering. It had got dusk, and the moon looked over the high wall of the court, causing undefined shadows to lurk in the corners of the numerous projecting portions of the building. I set my burden on the house steps by the kitchen door and lingered to rest, and draw in a few more breaths of the soft, sweet air. My eyes were on the moon, and my back to the entrance, when I heard a voice behind me say, "Nellie, is that you?" It was a deep voice, and foreign in tone, yet there was something in the manner of pronouncing my name which made it sound familiar. I turned about to discover who spoke, fearfully, for the doors were shut, and I had seen nobody on approaching the steps. Something stirred in the porch, and moving me near, I distinguished a tall man dressed in dark clothes with dark face and hair. He leant against the side and held his fingers on the latch as if intending to open for himself. Who can it be, I thought. Mr. Earnshaw? Oh no, the voice has no resemblance to his. I have waited her an hour, he resumed, while I continued staring. And the whole of that time, all round has been as still as death. I dared not enter. You do not know me. Look, I am not a stranger. A ray fell on his features. The cheeks were sallow, and half covered with black whiskers, the brows lowering, the deep eyes set and singular. I remembered the eyes. What? I cried, uncertain whether to regard him as a worldly visitor, and I raised my hands in amazement. What? You come back? Is it really you? Is it? Yes, Heathcliff, he replied, glancing from me up to the windows which reflected a score of glittering moons, but showed no lights from within. Are they home? Where is she? Nellie, you are not glad. You needn't be so disturbed. Is she here? Speak. I want to have one word with her. Your mistress. Go and say some person from Gimmerton desires to see her. I want to have one word with her. What is he gonna say? This is just not good because this is frustrating. Like I don't he needs to get something off his chest, but this is going to set her back years. This is going to erase the 3 good years that she's had. How will she take it? I exclaimed. What will she do? The surprise bewilders me. It will put her out of her head. Thank you, Nellie, the only rational person in this book. And you are Heathcliff, but altered. Nay, there's no comprehending it. Have you been a soldier? Have you been for a soldier? Go and carry my message, he interrupted impatiently. I'm in hell till you do. He lifted the latch and I entered. But when I got to the parlor where Mr. and Mrs. Linton were, I could not persuade myself to proceed. At length, I resolved on making an excuse to ask if they would have the candles lighted, and I opened the door. They sat together in a window, whose lattice lay back against the wall and displayed beyond the garden trees the wild green park, the valley of Gimmerton, with a long line of mist winding nearly to its top. For very soon after you pass the chapel, as you may notice, the sow that runs from the marshes joins a beck which follows the bend in the glen. Wuthering Heights rose above this silvery vapor, but our house was invisible. It rather dips down on the other side. Both the room and its occupants and the scene they gazed on looked wondrously peaceful. I shrank reluctantly from performing my errands, and was actually going away, leaving it unsaid, after having put my question about the candles, when a sense of my folly compelled me to return, and mutter, "A person from Gimmerton wishes to see you, ma'am." "What does he want?" asked Mrs. Linton. I did not question him, I answered. "Well, close the curtains, Nellie," she said, "and bring up tea. I'll be back again directly." She quitted the apartments. Mr. Edgar inquired carelessly who it was. Someone the mistress does not expect," I replied. "That Heathcliff, you recollect him, sir, who used to live at Mr. Earnshaw's." "What, the gypsy, the ploughboy?" he cried. "Why did you not say so to Catherine?" "Hush, you must not call him by those names, master," I said. She'd be sadly grieved to hear you. She was nearly heartbroken when he ran off. I guess his return will make a jubilee to her." Mr. Linton walked to the window on the other side of the room that overlooked the court. He unfastened it and leant out. I suppose they were below, for he exclaimed quickly, "Don't stand there, love. Bring the person in, if he be any one particular." Don't do it. No. Come on, Edgar. Don't be an idiot. Ere long, I heard the click of the latch, and Catherine flew upstairs, breathless and wild, too excited to show gladness. Indeed, by her face, you would rather have surmised an awful calamity. "Oh, Edgar, Edgar," she panted, flinging her arms round his neck. "Oh, Edgar, darling, Heathcliff's come back. He is." And she tightened her embrace to a squeeze. "Well, well," cried her husband crossly, "don't strangle me for that. He never struck me as a marvelous treasure. There is no need to be frantic." "I know you didn't like him," she answered, repressing a little the intensity of her delight. "Yet for my sake you must be friends now. Shall I tell him to come up?" "Here," he said, "into the parlor?" "Where else?" she asked. He looked vexed, and suggested the kitchen as a more suitable place for him. Mrs. Linton eyed him with a droll expression, half angry, half laughing at his fastidiousness. "No," she added after a while, "I cannot sit in the kitchen. Set 2 tables here, Ellen, one for your master and Miss Isabella, being gentry, the other for Heathcliff and myself, being of the lower orders. Will that please you, dear? Or I must have a fire lighted elsewhere. If so, give direction. I'll run down and secure my guest. I'm afraid the joy is too great to be real." She was about to dart off again, but Edgar arrested her. "You bid him step up," he said, addressing me. "And Catherine, try to be glad without being absurd. The whole household need not witness the sight of your welcoming a runaway servant as a brother." All right, so they don't really like each other that much anymore. I descended and found Heathcliff waiting under the porch, evidently anticipating an invitation to enter. He followed my guidance without a waste of words, and I ushered him into the presence of my master and mistress, whose flushed cheeks betrayed signs of warm talking. But the lady glowed with another feeling when her friend appeared at the door. She sprang forward to look both in his hands and led him to the Lintons, and then she seized Linton's reluctant fingers and crushed them into his. Hold on one second. Now fully revealed by the fire and candlelight, I was amazed more than ever to behold the transformation of Heathcliff. He had grown a tall, athletic, well-formed man, beside whom my master seemed quite slender and youth-like. His upright carriage suggested the idea of his having been in the army. His countenance was much older in expression and decision of feature than Mr. Linton's. It looked intelligent, and retained no marks of former degradation. A half-civilized ferocity lurked yet in the depressed brows, and eyes full of black fire, but it was subdued by his manner. It was subdued, and his manner was even dignified, quite divested of roughness, though too stern for grace. My master's surprise equaled or exceeded mine. He remained for a minute at a loss to address the ploughboy, as he had called him. Heathcliff dropped his slight hand and stood looking at him coolly till he chose to speak. "Sit down, sir," he said at length. "Mrs. Linton, recalling old times, would have me give you a cordial reception, and of course I am gratified when anything occurs to please her." "And I also," answered Heathcliff, "especially if it be anything in which I have a part. I shall stay an hour or two willingly." He took a seat opposite Catherine, who kept her gaze fixed on him, as if she feared he would vanish were she to remove it. He did not raise his to her often. A quick glance now and then sufficed, but it flashed back each time more confidently the undisguised delight he drank from hers. Yeesh. They were too much absorbed in their mutual joy to suffer embarrassment. Not so Mr. Edgar. He grew pale with pure annoyance, a feeling that reached its climax when his lady rose, and stepping across the rug, seized Heathcliff's hand and laughed like one beside herself. "I shall think it a dream tomorrow," she cried. "I shall not be able to believe that I have seen and touched and spoken to you once more. And yet, cruel Heathcliff, you don't deserve this welcome. To be absent and silent for 3 years and never to think of me." "A little more than you have thought of me," he murmured. "I heard of your marriage, Kathy, not long since, and while waiting the yard below, I meditated this plan. Just to have one glimpse of your face, a stare of surprise perhaps, and pretend pleasure. Afterwards settle my score with Hindley, and then prevent the law by doing execution on myself." Is that what I think it is? By doing execution on myself? Doesn't seem, if that's what I think it is, they don't seem healthy. I don't think that's news to anyone, but maybe not the best thing to talk about in this conversation right here. "Your welcome has put these ideas out of my mind. But beware of meeting me with another aspect next time." He'd rather die by his own hands than let the law get him after getting revenge, yeah. "But beware of meeting me with another aspect next time. Nay, you'll not drive me off again. You were really sorry for me, were you? Well, there was cause. I've fought through a bitter life since I last heard your voice. And you must forgive me. I struggled only for you." "Catherine, unless we are to have a cold tea, please come to my table," interrupted Linton, striving to preserve his ordinary tone and a due measure of politeness. "Mr. Heathcliff will have a long walk, wherever he may lodge tonight, and I'm thirsty." She took her post before the urn, and Miss Isabella came summoned by the bell. Then, having handed their chairs forward, I left the room. The meal hardly endured 10 minutes. Catherine's cup was never filled. She could neither eat nor drink. Edgar had made a slop in his saucer and scarcely swallowed a mouthful. Their guest did not protract his stay that evening above an hour longer. I asked as he departed if he went to Gimmerton. "No, to Wuthering Heights," he answered. "Mr. Earnshaw invited me when I called this morning." "Is that a lie?" Uh-oh. "Mr. Earnshaw invited him, and he called on Mr. Earnshaw?" I pondered this sentence painfully after he was gone. Is he turning out a bit of a hypocrite and coming into the country to work mischief under a cloak? I mused. I had a presentiment in the bottom of my heart that he had better have remained away. Yes, Nellie, thank you. Nellie's the only good person in this story. Oh boy. I felt this coming, but this is a little crazy. You know what? I'm actually kind of curious about this. Is Heinley somewhat of a changed person? No, like not really a changed person. Is he calling because is he like, hey, I want to apologize? I don't think that's going to be the case, but it would be crazy if he's like ready to apologize and then all of a sudden Heathcliff just murders him. Yeah, it's true. Nellie is telling the story herself. It's true. It's a great point. About the middle of the night, I was wakened from my first nap by Mrs. Linton gliding into my chamber, taking a seat on my bedside, and pulling me by the hair to rouse me. I cannot rest, Ellen, she said by way of apology, and I want some living creature to keep me company in my happiness. Oh, gosh, come on. Let her sleep. Edgar is sulky because I am glad of a thing that does not interest him. He refuses to open his mouth except to utter pettish, silly speeches, and he affirmed I was cruel and selfish for wishing him to talk when he was so sick and sleepy. He always contrives to be sick at the least cross. I gave a few sentences of commendation to Heathcliff, and he, either for a headache or for a pang of envy, began to cry, so I got up and left him. What use is it praising Heathcliff to him? I answered. As lads, they had an aversion to each other, and Heathcliff would hate just as much to hear him praised. It's human nature. Let Mr. Linton alone about him, unless he would like an open quarrel between them. Yeah. But does it not show great weakness, pursued she? I'm not envious, and I never felt hurt at the brightness of Isabella's yellow hair, and the whiteness of her skin, at her dainty elegance, and the fondness all the family have exhibited for her. Even you, Nellie, if we have a dispute sometimes, you back Isabella at once, and I yield like a foolish mother. I call her darling and flatter her into a good temper. It pleases her brother to see us cordial, and that pleases me. But they are very much alike. They are spoiled children, and fancy the world was made for their accommodations. And though I humor both, I think smart chastisement might improve them all the same. You're mistaken, Mrs. Linton, said I. They humor you. I know what there would be to do if they not. I know what there would be to do if they did not. You can well afford to indulge their passing whims as long as their business is to anticipate all your desires. You may, however, fall out at last over something of equal consequence to both sides, and then you term weak, and then those you term weak are very capable of being as obstinate as you. And then we shall fight to the death, shan't we, Nellie? She returned, laughing. No, I tell you, I have such faith in Linton's love that I really believe I might kill him. And he wouldn't wish to retaliate. That's a little alarming, saying that out loud. I advise her to value him, the more for his affection. I do, she answered, but he needn't resort to whining for trifles. It's childish. And instead of melting into tears because I said that Heathcliff was now worthy of one's regard, and it would honor the first gentleman in the country to be his friend, he ought to have said it for me, and been delighted from sympathy. He must get accustomed to him, and he may as well like him, considering how Heathcliff has reasons to object to him. I'm sure he behaved excellently. What do you think of his going to Wuthering Heights? I inquired. He is reformed in every aspect, apparently. Quite a Christian, offering the right hand of fellowship to his enemies all around. Nellie putting up a little like bait here, I think. He explained it, she replied. I wondered as much as you. He said he called to gather information concerning me from you, supposing you reside there still. And Joseph told Heinle, who came out and fell to questioning him of what he had been doing and how he had been living, and finally desired him to walk in. There were some persons sitting at cards. Heathcliff joined them. My brother lost some money to him, and finding him plentifully supplied, he requested that he would come again into the evening, to which he consented. Heinle is too reckless to select his acquaintance prudently. He doesn't trouble himself to reflect on the causes he might have for mistrusting one whom he has whom he has basely injured. But Heathcliff affirms his principal reason for resuming the connection with his ancient persecutor is to wish to install himself in quarters at walking distance from the Grange, and an attachment to the house where we live together, and likewise a hope that I shall have more opportunities of seeing him there than I could have if he settled at Gimmerton. He means to offer liberal payment for permission to lodge at the Heights. And doubtless my brother's covetousness will prompt him to accept the terms. He was always greedy, though what he grasps with one hand he flings away with the other. He's going to gamble away Wuthering Heights to him. These people are insane. How on earth could Heathcliff... I mean, he's probably going with that motive where he's like, oh, the horns are calling. Wuthering Heights is about to demolish this place. Like, the idea that Heathcliff would go back and say I want a room here, and the delusion that this guy would be like, yeah, sure. They're all idiots. This is terrible. This is like gross revenge. The alarms are like, this is an interesting thing. This is crazy that's going to happen. Yeah, exactly. Heathcliff is definitely coming to just mend the bridges here. Oh, yeah. This is wild. All right, let's keep reading. It's a nice place for a young man to fix his dwelling in, said I. Have you no fear of consequences, Mrs. Linton? None for my friend. His strong head will keep him from danger. Gosh. She's so dumb. She's such an idiot. How do you not have a grasp on people in any way? A little for Heinle, but he can't be made morally worse than he is. And I stand between him and bodily harm. The event of this evening has reconciled me to God and humanity. Gosh, I had risen in angry rebellion against Providence. Oh, I've endured very, very bitter misery, Nellie. If that creature knew how bitter, how he'd be ashamed to cloud its removal with idle petulance. It was kindness for him which induced me to bear it alone. Had I expressed the agony I frequently felt, he would have been taught to long for its alleviation as ardently as I. However, it's over, and I'll take no revenge on his folly. I can afford to suffer anything hereafter. Should the meanest thing arrive, slap me on the cheek. And I'd not turn the other. I'd ask for pardon for provoking it. And as proof, I'll go make peace with Edgar instantly. Good night, I'm an angel. This is wild. This is insane. This is crazy. It's wild because I just did not think that she was going to be the most delusional, insane person in this novel. You know, there's also this is actually a little sad because okay, so I'm gonna put a little bit of sympathy on her. I don't think anything she's doing is right, But when you experience some kind of trauma like that, isn't there like the scientific thing that the trauma kind of traps you at that age? Like, does she have multiple, like, this was one of my uh uh my therapist had this understanding that um she had this like slight disagreement with the idea of multiple personality disorder. She said multiple personality disorder is really two personalities. And it is one person before they are their traumatized self, where they're referring back to that, where they can go in a place of safety, and the person that they are currently. And Kathy almost seems like that. Like she's resorting back to a child. Like she is such a child in this book. Like the fact that she can say some of this stuff is like a 10-year-old child, even younger. This is like an 6-year-old child that we're dealing with. And like I think her trauma has trapped her at that age. You know what I mean? What is DID? Yeah, she's definitely back in Loveville. Yeah, everybody else has maybe. I mean, like I don't think we could compare traumas. Like they've all kind of experienced trauma in some way, but she's just acting like a 5-year-old right now. Like how? Like it's insane. Oh, dissociative identity disorder. Okay, interesting. Man, these people are crazy. All right. Anyway, we'll come back to that in a second. I want to finish this. In self-complacent conviction, she departed, and the success of her fulfilled resolution was obvious on the morrow. Mr. Linton had not only abjured his peevishness, though his spirit seemed still subdued by Catherine's exuberance of vivacity, but he ventured no objection in her taking Isabella with her to Wuthering Heights in the afternoon. And she rewarded him with such a summer of sweetness and affection in return as made the house a paradise for several days, both master and servants profiting from the perpetual sunshine. Mr. Heathcliff, I should say in the future, or Mr. Heathcliff, I should say in the future, used the liberty of visiting at Thrushcross Grange cautiously at first. He seemed estimating how far its owner would bear his intrusion. Catherine also deemed it judiciously to moderate her expressions of pleasure in receiving him, and he gradually established his right to be expected. He retained a great deal of reserve for which his boyhood was remarkable, and that served to repress all startling demonstrations of feeling. My master's uneasiness experienced a lull, and further circumstances diverted it into another channel for space. His new source of trouble sprang from the not anticipated misfortune of Isabella Linton evincing a sudden and irresistible attraction toward the tolerated guest. No way. What? Kathy's gonna kill her. Crazy. She was at that time a charming young lady of 18, infantile in manners, though possessed of a keen wit, keen feelings, and a keen temper too, if irritated. Her brother, who loved her tenderly, was appalled at this fantastic preference. Leaving aside the degradation of an alliance with a nameless man and the possible fact that his property, in default of heir males, might pass into such a one's power, Chapter 10. For an account of Emily Bronte's understanding of complex laws. Oh, I don't care. Not a good end note. He had sense to comprehend Heathcliff's disposition, to know that, though his exterior was altered, his mind was unchangeable and unchanged. And he dreaded that mind. It revolted him. He shrank forebodingly from the idea of committing Isabella to its keeping. Edgar is smart, at least in this sense. He can read people pretty well. He would have recoiled still more had he been aware that her attachment rose unsolicited and was bestowed where it awakened no reciprocation of sentiment. For the minute he discovered its existence, he laid the blame on Heathcliff's deliberate designs. We had all remarked during some time that Miss Linton fretted and pined over something. She grew cross and wearisome, snapping at and teasing Catherine continually, at the imminent risk of exhausting her limited patience. We excused her to a certain extent, on the plea of ill health. She was dwindling and fading before our eyes. But one day she had been particularly wayward, rejecting her breakfast, complaining that the servants did not know what to do, or did not do what she told them, that their mistress would not allow her to be nothing in the house, and Edgar neglected her, that she had caught a cold with the doors being left open, and we let the parlor fire go out on purpose to vex her. With 100 yet more frivolous accusations, Miss Linton peremptorily insisted that she should go to bed. Having scolded her heartily, threatened to send for the doctor. Mention of Kenneth caused her to exclaim instantly that her health was perfect, and that it was only Catherine's harshness which made her unhappy. "How can you say that I'm harsh, you naughty fondling?" cried the mistress, amazed at the unreasonable assertion. "You are surely losing your reason. When have I been harsh? Tell me." "Yesterday," sobbed Isabella, "and now." "Yesterday," said her sister-in-law. "On what occasion?" "In our walk on the moor, you told me to ramble where I pleased, and you sauntered on with Mr. Heathcliff." "And that's your notion of harshness?" said Catherine, laughing. "It was no hint that your company was superfluous. We didn't care whether you kept with us or not. I merely thought Heathcliff's talk would have nothing entertaining for your ears." "Oh, no," wept the young lady. "You wished me away because you knew I liked to be there." "Is she sane?" asked Mrs. Linton, appealing to me. "I'll repeat our conversation word for word, Isabella, and you point out any charm it could have had for you." "I don't mind the conversation," she answered. "I wanted to be with—" "Well," said Catherine, perceiving her hesitate to complete the sentence. "With him. And I won't always be sent off," she continued, kindling. "You are a dog in the manger, Cathy, and desire no one to be loved but yourself." That's not a bad... That's actually... She kind of nailed it right there. "You are an impertinent little monkey," exclaimed Mrs. Linton in surprise. "But I will not believe this idiocy. It is impossible that you can covet the admiration of Heathcliff, that you can consider him an agreeable person. I hope I have misunderstood you, Isabella." "No, you have not," said the infatuated girl. "I love him more than you ever loved Edgar. And he might love me if you would let him." "Come on, Isabella. Come on, stop being stupid." "I wouldn't be you for a kingdom, then," Catherine declared emphatically, and she seemed to speak sincerely. "Nellie, help me to convince her of her madness. Tell her what Heathcliff is. An unreclaimed creature without refinement, without cultivation, an arid wilderness of firs and whinstone. I'd as soon put that little cannery into the park on a winter's day as recommend you to bestow your heart on him." Oh my gosh. Cathy is actually being good here. Like, Cathy is like, this guy is not great. But is she saying that just because she loves him? Or is she saying this because she actually knows this and still loves him? Maybe she actually knows this. Maybe she's like just trying to scare her away. "It's deplorable ignorance of his character, child, and nothing else, which makes that dream enter your head. Pray don't imagine that he conceals depths of benevolence and affection beneath a stern exterior. He's not a rough diamond, a pearl containing oyster of a rustic. He's a fierce, pitiless, wolfish man. I never say to him, let this or that enemy alone, because it would be ungenerous or cruel to harm them. I say, let them alone, because I should hate them to be wronged. And he'd crush you like a sparrow's egg, Isabella, if he found you a troublesome charge. I know he couldn't love a Linton. and yet he be quite capable of marrying your fortune and expectations. Avarice is growing with him and a besetting sin. There's my picture, and I'm his friend, so much so that he thought seriously to catch you. I should perhaps have held my tongue and let you fall into his trap. Miss Linton regarded her sister-in-law with indignation. Yeah, possessiveness of Heathcliff is definitely it right there. He's so lowly. Don't touch him. He's mine. It's so crazy because Kathy is actually seeing him clearly here. Like, this is the real picture of Heathcliff. She's crazy. For shame, she repeated angrily. You're worse than the 20 foes, you poisonous friend. Ah, you won't believe me then, said Catherine. You think I speak from wicked selfishness. I'm certain you do, retorted Isabella, and I shudder at you. Good, cried the other. Try for yourself. If that be your spirit, I have done. And yield the argument to your saucy insolence. I must suffer for her egotism, she sobbed, as Miss Linton left the room. All is against me. She has blighted my single consolation. But she uttered falsehoods, didn't she? Mr. Heathcliff is not a fiend. He is an honorable soul and a true one. Or how could he remember her? What a dumb girl. Come on. Banish him from your thoughts, miss, I said. He's a bird of a bad omen. No mate for you. Mrs. Linton spoke strongly, and yet I can't contradict her. She is better acquainted with his heart than I, or anyone besides. And she never would represent him and as worse than he is. Honest people don't hide their deeds. How has he been living? How has he got rich? Why is he staying at Wuthering Heights, the house of a man whom he abhors? They say Mr. Earnshaw is worse and worse since he came. They sit up all night together continually, and Hindley has been borrowing money on his land, or Hindley. And does not play and drink, and does nothing but play and drink. I heard only a week ago, it was Joseph who told me. I met him at a Gimmerton. Oh my gosh. Imagine reading this full paragraph. Hold on. We're going back. Nellie, he said, we shall have a coroner's inquest soon at our place. One of them almost got his finger cut off with stopping the other from sticking himself like a calf. That's the master, you know. That is so set on going to the grand assizes, the courts. He's not worried about the benches of judges. Neither Paul, nor Peter, nor John, nor Matthew, nor any of them. He doesn't care. He longs to set his defiant face against them. And that bonny laugh, Heathcliff, you know, or he's a rare one. He can grin and laugh as well as anybody at a right devil's jest. Does he never say anything of his fine living amongst us when he goes to the Grange? This is the way it is. At sundown, dice, brandy, close shutters, and a candlelight till the next day at noon. Then the fool goes cursing and raving to his chamber, making decent folk put their fingers in their ears for the very shame. Does that mean he has women in his chambers? It says, then the fool goes cursing and raving to his chamber. I guess it's because of the cursing. Making decent folk put fingers in their ears for shame. The knave, he can count his money and eat and sleep and off to his neighbors to gossip with his wife. Of course, he tells Catherine how her father's gold runs into his pocket, and her father's son gallops down the road to ruin, while he goes ahead open to the gates. Yeah, I think she says she's 18. I can't deal with dark romance. I'm going to need a long break from dark romance after this book. I feel like this is the dark romance. And these people are just so dumb. I guess all of us sometimes can fall into this trap of like being dumb when you have affections for someone. But yeah, Not a romance. Dysfunction. Heathcliff and Kathy are 19? Really? I would have said they're a little older. I thought maybe like 22. Didn't it say 22? Is it Edgar 22? It said someone was 22. Maybe I'm wrong about that. All right, let's keep reading. Let's finish up this chapter. You are leagued with the rest, Ellen, she replied. I'll not listen to your slanders. What malevolence you must have to wish to convince me that there is no happiness in the world. Whether she would have got over this fancy it left to herself or perceived in nursing it perpetually, I cannot say. She had little time to reflect. The day after, there was a justice meeting at the next town. My master was obliged to attend, and Mr. Heathcliff, aware of his absence, called rather earlier than usual. Catherine and Isabella were sitting in the library on hostile terms, but silent. The latter alarmed at her recent indiscretion and the disclosure she had made of her secret feelings in a transient fit of passion. The former, on mature consideration, really offended with her companion, and if she laughed again at her pertness, inclined to make it no laughing matter to her. She did laugh as she saw Heathcliff pass the window. I was sweeping the hearth, and I noticed a mischievous smile on her lips. Isabella, absorbed in her meditations or a book, remained till the door opened, and it was too late to attempt an escape, which she would gladly have done had it been practicable. Come in, that's right, exclaimed the mistress, gaily pulling a chair to the fire. There are two people sadly in need of a third to thaw the ice between them. You are the very one we should both of us choose. Heathcliff, I'm proud to show you, at last, somebody that dotes on you more than myself. I expect you to feel flattered. Nay, it's not Nellie. Don't look at her. My poor little sister-in-law is breaking her heart by mere contemplation of your physical and moral beauty. It lies in your own power to be Edgar's brother. No, Isabella, you shan't run off, she continued, arresting with feigned playfulness the confounded girl who had risen indignantly. Wow, this is a nasty thing to do, Kathy. We were quarreling like cats about you, Heathcliff, and I was fairly beaten in the protestations of devotion and admiration. And moreover, I was informed that if I would have the manners to stand aside my rivals, as she would have herself to be, would shoot a shaft into your soul that would fix you forever and send my image into eternal oblivion. This is mean. Catherine, said Isabella, calling up her dignity and disdaining to struggle from the tight grasp that held her. I thank you to adhere to the truth and not slander me even in joke. Mr. Heathcliff, be kind enough to bid this friend of yours release me. She forgets that you and I are not intimate acquaintances, and what amuses her is painful to me beyond expression. As the guest answered nothing but took his seat and looked thoroughly indifferent what sentiments she cherished concerning him, she turned and whispered an earnest appeal for liberty to her tormentor. By no means, cried Mrs. Linton in answer. I won't be named a dog in the manger again. You shall stay now, then. Heathcliff, why don't you evince satisfaction at my pleasant news? Isabella swears that the love Edgar has for me is nothing to that she entertains for you. Catherine has in fact misrepresented what Isabella said, for Isabella claimed that she loved Heathcliff more than Catherine loves Edgar. Oh, yeah. Wow, she flips everything around in her mind to be everything is about her. Ay, ay, ay. Gosh, she is awful. I'm sure she had made some speech of the kind, did she not, Ellen? And she fasted ever since the day before yesterday's walk, from sorrow and rage that I dispatched her out of your society under the idea of its being unacceptable. I think you belie her, said Heathcliff, twisting his chair to face them. She wishes to be out of my society now, at any rate. And he stared hard at the object of discourse, as one might do at a strange repulsive animal, a centipede from the Indies, for instance, which curiosity leads to examine in spite of the aversion it raises. The poor thing couldn't bear that. She grew white and red in rapid succession, and while tears beaded her lashes, bent the strength of her small fingers to loosen the firm clutch of Catherine, and perceiving that, as fast as she raised one finger off her arm, another closed down, and she could not remove the whole together, she began to make use of her nails, and their sharpness presently ornamented the detainers with crescents of red. There's a tigress, exclaimed Mrs. Linton, setting her free, and shaking her hand with pain. Be gone, for God's sake, and hide your vixen face. How foolish to reveal those talons to him. Can't you fancy the conclusions he'll draw? Look, Heathcliff, they are instruments that will do execution. You must be aware of your eyes. I'd wrench them off her fingers if they ever menaced me, he answered brutally, when the door had closed after her. But what did you mean by teasing the creature in that manner, Cathy? You were not speaking the truth, were you? I assure you I was, she returned. She has been pining for your sake, several weeks, and raving about you this morning, and pouring forth a deluge of abuse, because I've represented your failings in a plain light, for the purpose of mitigating her adoration. But don't notice it further. I wish to punish her sauciness, that's all. I like her too well, my dear Heathcliff, to let you absolutely seize and devour her up. What a liar! She is absurd. And I like her too ill to attempt it, she said, except in a very ghoulish fashion. You'd hear of odd things if I lived alone with that mawkish waxen face. The most ordinary would be painting on its white the colors of the rainbow, and turning the blue eyes black every day or two. They detestably resemble Linton's. Delectably, observed Catherine. They are dove's eyes. Angels. She, her brother's heir, is she not? He asked after a brief silence. Ooh, interesting. I should be sorry to think so, returned his companion. Half a dozen nephews shall erase her title. Please, heaven, abstract your mind from the subject at present. You are too prone to covet your neighbor's goods. Remember, this neighbor's goods are mine. If they were mine, they would be none less than that, said Heathcliff. But though Isabella Linton may be silly, she is scarcely mad. And in short, we'll dismiss the matter as you advise. From their tongues they dismiss it, and Catherine probably from her thoughts. The other, I felt certain, recalled it very often in the course of the evening. I saw him smile to himself, grin rather, and lapse into ominous musings whenever Miss Linton had occasion to be absent from the apartment. His revenge is going to be awful. Because him chatting about the title of that means that he's probably going to marry her to get the title and make Cathy feel terrible. But then he's going to marry Cathy, and maybe murder Mr. Linton, and then try to get Cathy on her side or on his side. I determined to watch his movements. My heart invariably cleaved to the master's, in preference to Catherine's side. With reason, I imagine, for he was kind and trustful and honorable. And she could not be called the opposite, yet she seemed to allow herself such wide latitude that I had little faith in her principles, and less sympathy for her feelings. I wanted something to happen which might have the effect of freeing both Wuthering Heights and the Grange of Mr. Heathcliff, quietly, leaving us as we had been prior to his advent. His visits were a continual nightmare to me, and I suspected to my master also. His abode at the Heights was an oppression past explaining. I felt that God had forsaken the stray sheep there to its own wicked wanderings, and an evil beast prowled between it and the fold, waiting his time to spring and destroy. Oh my gosh. That really feels like it is it. That he's an evil beast waiting to pounce and just demolish. Man, Meg, enjoy the phone call with a friend. Thanks for joining. I mean, we're done. That was chapter 10. I can only take this book in doses. Like, I don't know today if I could read more of this. There's just too much. There's too much crap in this. They're all just such terrible people. Like, I feel bad for... Like, what happened to Harriton, by the way? Yeah, we really do need a palate cleanser after this book. Yikes. Oh my gosh. Anytime we read a book like this, we're going to need to read something really light and soft and just chill. This one is just brutal. Like, they're all just terrible. Meet Harriton again. Okay, he's at the Heights. Okay. yeah, I think you're right, Nemo. Michael, I'm pretty sure they are. Yeah, reread Pride and Prejudice just to give ourselves a bath of this stuff. Honestly, it's not a bad idea. But June, can you read this like nonstop? That's the question. Can you just keep reading this? Because I can only take this in doses. Like, part of me wants to read this fast just to get it done with. It is like an interesting depiction, but it's just so dysfunctional. And it's just like so revenge oriented and just nasty. Ay. Yeah, Frog and Toad might be a good read after this. I'm kind of with you on that. I'm glad this is as enjoyable as Wuthering Heights can be. I'm glad we're getting there at least. That's crazy. You used to finish this in a night. You can read this nonstop. That's crazy to me. I need books like this in doses. Or I want to read all this just so I can get it over with. Book makes me want to drink. Makes me not want to. Hold on, maybe I need a drink after this one. Like, they're just... Man. Just, I wish Nellie and Harriton would get out of this situation. They're just going to be miserable. It's going to be brutal. Man. All right, guys. Man. Drinking game for Wuthering Heights. Yeah, honestly, it's not bad. Northern Abbey, it could be fun. Something light. We need something light. I'll look that up, and then maybe we'll do something light, and then we'll do Count of Monte Cristo or something like that. We'll see. We'll figure it out. I always kind of like, we'll figure it out as we go. That's my take. All right, guys, I am gonna go. That was a pleasure. It was fun reading this with you guys, hanging out with you guys, helping me understand this. I need to go. I don't know. Go. I don't even know. Go take a shower after this or something. I will see you guys in the next one. Next read is maybe going to be Tuesday. This weekend I'm booked up this weekend. Maybe Monday or Tuesday. I'm thinking Tuesday. But I'll see you guys then. I'll let you guys know in the Discord, and I'll set it like a day ahead of time too, so you guys know. But I'll let you guys know. Thanks for joining as always, and I will see you in the next one. Yeah, I need some chai. Honestly, that's not a bad idea. See you guys.